In a vast, echoing library, a young man named Duma stands with a heavy heart, bracing himself, preparing for the words he has been waiting for. The man at the table looks at him, as if he understands everything, and asks if he realizes why he was summoned. A sly, superior smile spreads across the official's face as he reminds Duma of his esteemed position, Chief Royal Mage. He says that losing such an ability is a great disappointment, but his gaze reveals his true, cruel pleasure. Suddenly, the official throws his hands up in feigned festivity. His voice thunders, with feigned joy, as he announces that the Duma has been reappointed. Hearing this, he only sighs heavily, powerless and broken, wondering what will happen to his life now. Duma froze in Plassy, eyes wide with complete shock. This was not at all the result he had expected. The official, with a bloody smile, clarifies the situation and says, he is not being dismissed, he is being sent to the distant border of Rodosna. Triumphant laughter bursts from his chest as the man mockingly asks if Duma has any last words. Lowering his gaze, he says dryly, he has nothing more to say. And then an excited, genuine smile lights up Duma's face. Her eyes fill with pure, unrestrained excitement. Joyfully declares that it is precisely the transfer that he wanted. He envisions a peaceful new life, surrounded by kind and gentle people. He remembers a dream. He once saw its symbol shines the emblem of the Royal Court of Mages, an elite group that serves the royal family directly. To become one of them is the main dream of every novice mage, an almost impossible goal achieved only by a few of the most brilliant minds in the kingdom. And as soon as he looks out the window, a bitter truth surfaces in his memory. The dream he chased for so long turned into a dull and unsatisfactory reality. He worked so hard to become the chief mage, only to encounter a world of intrigues, sabotage, and senseless experiments. After 5 long years, even the shining capital had dimmed. The fall from height began with one fateful day. He could no longer stand aside and watch as the department head cruelly bullied the young mage. The enraged man, madly offended by the challenge, prepared to burn their priceless research with dark magic. In the corrupt man's hand, a small evil flame flared. It threatened to destroy everything they had worked for. So Duma decided to take everything into his own hands. Now he looks down at the senseless official and admits to himself that perhaps the headbutt was a bit too harsh. Returning to the present, he leans out of the train window and shouts to the whole world that he is finally free. He is bursting with joy. Now he has time and silence to engage in the research he truly loves. A treacherous voice from behind suddenly warns, it is so dangerous to lean out the window. One of his guards, a man named Kane, asks why he is so happy to be sent to a remote place like Rodosina. Duma pulls his head into his shoulders and feels a bit embarrassed. The map shows a long road ahead. Far in the borderlands lies the tiny village Rodosina, 2 weeks' journey from the royal capital. The very thought of such a rural, secluded place brings a secret smile to his face. It sounds simply perfect. Kane, a swordsman with a good heart, tells him to just relax and enjoy the trip. Another guard, a spear user named Arias, assures him their group, Silver Wing Travelers, will keep him safe. A young archer named Rui proudly declares that, as B-rank adventurers, they are quite capable of more. A stubborn rapier fencer named Lilia winks and says that with 5 of them, they are a formidable force. And a burly axe user named Orin confidently states that no one will dare attack them. Duma smiles, truly reassured by their confidence. But in just about 30 minutes, the proud travelers stand together, beaten, broken, and sullen. Bandits have surrounded them. Their leader mocks the travelers, snorting maliciously. Their high rank means nothing against the overwhelming numbers. Kane raises his gaze to the bandit, leader, his eyes burning with rage. The bandit moves like lightning. He lowers his stick with one mighty blow. The bandit leader stands over him and warns, do not take them for ordinary thugs. With a greedy smile, he announces that they will take the cart with the decorations and everything in it. Inside, Duma mutters to himself, regretting his decision to buy such an expensive cart now that his savings are at stake. His face hardens, his gaze narrows, determination without retreat. He hoped the security would handle it themselves, but he understands. He can no longer stand aside. A small light begins to dimly flicker on the fingertip. Medea tears a massive glowing magic circle out of the ground. It lashes the bandits with shock. Giant golems, molded from solid stone, emerge from the ground, and their grotesque bodies terrify thieves who failed to prepare. The robbers scream in frenzy from fear, wondering what kind of creatures these are and who could have summoned them. One of the golems returns to them, a dark, faceless face, a promise of destruction. Leaning back in the chair, Duma thinks this should be enough to resolve the situation. But just inaudible screams rise from outside, and his blood runs cold. He understands, he probably overdid it. Kane stands in the middle of the carnage and, not believing his eyes, looks back at the carriage. He asks if it was Duma who was involved in all of this. Peering through the window with pure horror, Duma desperately denies everything, insisting that it was probably not him, but someone else. The travelers look at the form. With the trip application, it clearly states that they are accompanying only one passenger. Then they read another line in the form, no magic at all. They are all overwhelmed with complete confusion. Seeing their wounds, Duma happily offers them a healing scroll and explains that anyone can use it. Kane Freeze recognizes an incredibly rare and valuable artifact, and Duma just shrugs. He can make one like that in a few seconds. Kane looks at him, a persistent, determined look blazes on his face. He asks Duma if he will consider joining their adventure team. The Duma immediately and firmly refuses, stating that it is far from strong enough. He thinks to himself, the slow dream is very close now, and the party is the last thing he wants. Finally, they arrive in the town of Gruton. Kane tells him, here they part ways, and now he will have to find another crew to Rodosna. Duma thanks them for everything, but Kane humbly says that they really did not help much. While Duma withdraws, Kane calls out and orders him to definitely thank the mysterious mage who saved them if he ever finds him. The air is cold here, and he decides, first of all, he needs a warm room at the end. Notices the sign Comer Bien and decides to go inside. He opens the door, a gust of wind lifts the leaves and swirls them around as he utters a polite greeting. His gaze is immediately captivated by the sight of the girl in a lush white skirt. The swift beauty with light brown chestnut hair turns to him, a stick in her hand. He is overwhelmed moment by enchantment. The master calls him into the house and orders the girl to wait for a moment. Then she asks him to close the door. He jerks away from his thoughts, embarrassed. Inside, he finds himself in a very strange argument. The girl asks if it is true that he has no money, and he nervously replies if that is a problem. She warns him if he jokes, she will call security. He instantly understands a terrible mistake has happened. He closely examines her, noting the fine clothing and age. She's clearly already grown up for this region. And then he notices a familiar noble coat of arms on her suitcase. But before he manages to set it up, the girl suddenly faints and falls right into his arms. He holds her, completely stunned and bewildered by the sudden turn of events. She looks up at him, her eyes misty, her face flushed, beautiful and defenseless. The hotel owner sees them in an indecent situation and decides that they are a couple, so he offers them to stay in the same room. It is then that a loud, resonant rumble cuts through the awkward silence. The girl's face flashes with heat up to red. It was her stomach. Soon a huge banquet feast is spread out before them. The girl eats with incredible appetite, her cheeks puffed from the food. After she devours 6 full portions, Duma sits opposite and sighs heavily the expensive price for the dinner he just paid. He finally asks why she has no money, then asks her to name herself. With wide-open, innocent eyes, she introduces herself, Laura. He introduces himself as Duma and feels a strange discomfort while clearing the pile of empty plates. Laura explains that she simply didn't think she would need money since she never needed it before. He forces himself to smile, but in his head shouts, her excuse is impossible. When he looks at her, his magical senses suddenly tremble, something is wrong. He uses his power to see her mana and freezes in horror. It is completely blocked and tangled by a powerful curse. He knows this cannot be ignored, and decides that for such a simple punishment, one snap of the finger should be enough to shatter it. He casually snaps his finger at her side. Laura looks at him, puzzled by this small gesture. A colossal flash of invisible power bursts from her body, shaking the entire room. Duma freezes, stunned. She realizes this is her true, unsealed mana, the amount of power that surpasses even his own. Laura lowers her gaze to her hands, confused but strangely light at heart. She understands the colossal power was sealed inside. She tells him that she feels much better, and admits, all this time she felt something strange. He still can't believe that she didn't even notice she is cursed. Everything turns out to be much more complicated than he thought. He decides not to dig deeper, and tells Laura to rest while he carries out the task himself. He arrives at the Adventurers Guild, and here the cat-eared receptionist announces that all trips to Rodosina are suspended. He asks why, and she nervously explains that there are circumstances. He goes mad, says he must get to Rodosina, but she refuses to explain further. Suddenly, a scream from outside cuts off their conversation. Duma sharply turns to the door alarm. Empty explosions and bursting in, the criminals sweep away all the valuables, demanding them from everyone. The girl from the guild realizes this is exactly why all travels were stopped. She explains a new gang of robbers is terrorizing the city, and no one can find their hideout. Duma realizes these are the same men who attacked his crew. He is gnawed by the question, why can't the city guards handle them? At that moment, the gang leader points directly at him and shouts with recognition. The bandit recognizes him from their fight in the forest and swears, This time he will not escape. Duma freezes in silent shock, and the girl from the guild whispers that this is an impossible situation. In memories, the gang leader effortlessly knocks down one of the city guards with a single move. He stands over the fallen enemies, mocks their helplessness, and boasts that he can defeat them anytime he wants. Duma feels the full weight of the threat. He tells the girl from the guild that this man is incredibly strong even one-on-one. The robber remembers his training, replaying in his mind the orders he was given. Memory flickers in his head of a shadow swordsman from the capital, the true leader of his operation. Duma, overwhelmed by rising horror, realizes these are not just robbers. If their leader is a former capital fencer, he is capable of destroying the entire city. The brave city guard steps forward to stop him, but the robber brushes him off as if he is nothing more than an annoying trifle. The bandit rushes forward, ready to deliver a fatal blow. Duma understands that this is bad. He prepares to use his secret magic. He sees no other way out. Before the blade can land, Laura flares up on the spot and easily intercepts the bandit's hand with her bare hand. Duma's eyes widen pure, unspoiled shock. In panic, he raises his hands to his face, shouts Laura's name, and demands an explanation for why she is not resting as he ordered her. The bandit glances sideways at the girl, who stopped his attack and demanding asks who she is. Laura responds with a look calm, unwavering. She is afraid of nothing. The group holds on to Duma, uses her name, and shifts their gaze to him. He asks if they know each other, and Duma is so scared she cannot answer. Noid interrupts, and the bandit realizes this is too much trouble. He points at them and promises to remember their faces, then declares that next time they will finish it, and retreats. The thieves vanish into thin air, and the townspeople remain furious they slipped away again. Duma saw what really happened. They cast invisibility magic, and he still feels their trail. Laura notices his serious facial expression and asks what happened. He groans with anger. All he wanted was a peaceful life, but troubles seemed to follow him everywhere. In her office, the guildmaster of Gruden, a woman named Renizia Roni, looked around exhaustedly. The guards had been beaten again. The head of Magic Radar reports that this time the losses were minimal, thanks to the intervention of a brave young girl. But he warns the bandit leader has already made the girl his next target. Nezia is very worried because she thinks this girl is the same age as her sister, and now in mortal danger. She decides she must act herself. She stands up and declares that she will join the search and support them with her magic. Radar tells her that their enemy is a skilled swordsman from the capital, and she confidently replies that she was second at the Magic Academy. She knows she only got second place and dreams that the top student was here, but as guildmaster she feels the responsibility to protect her city lies on her shoulders. With a stirred, determined fire, she gives the order prepare to deploy. She will protect her people. In a dark cave full of treasures, the bandits return to their secret hideout. A bandit from the guild reports to his boss. Although they failed to get any loot, they still managed to smash the city guards. The boss was revealed a powerful, stern-faced swordsman with light hair. The thief flaunts a ring and says that it is the ring of invisibility from the capital. It allows them to vanish. His boss asks where he got it, and the robber admits he stole it from a royal. Then he nodded with a gesture toward the cave entrance. A twisted magical barrier completely hides their hideout from the outside world. The combination of the rings and the barrier makes them completely elusive. The robber turns to his boss, and a question burns in him like fire. He asks why a powerful man from the capital would side with them. In response, his boss slams his huge sword into the ground with a crash. The bandit falls silent immediately and instantly regrets his question. The tip of the sword is deeply embedded in the stone floor. The leader speaks in a low and dangerous voice. He asks if they really consider themselves better than the corrupt nobles in the capital. His words ignite a fire in the hearts of the people. They shout, roar, and with each approval the support grows only louder. He tightly grips the sword, satisfied with their loyalty. But then his eyes narrow. He glances past his men at the entrance and asks who is hiding behind it. A huge chasm opens in the valley beneath their hideout. Duma emerges from the darkness and calmly compliments the boss, saying he has very refined taste. The bandits panic, demanding an explanation of how they were tracked and where they got the road to invisibility. The boss glances at the intruders, his voice a low growl, and he demands to know who they are. Just a wandering mage, Duma replies calmly. Laura appears beside him, sword ready, and she adds another passing swordsman. The enraged bandit leader shouts for his men to gather. And Duma is already ready. Around him flares a shining, multi-layered magical circle that binds the bandits tightly in shock and trembling. He calmly explains, although he hates fights, he cannot let them go after they saw his face, and he will not allow his invention to be misused. He unleashes his magic. A wave of power crashes into the hideout and instantly disables the entire gang. He explains that it was a complex spell, a multi-layered array of two overlapping magical circles. He looked down at the broken bandits and, thinking to himself, decided, there's nothing to boast about here, only two layers, and he restrained the power. Howard, the bandit leader, watches closely and recognizes the spell from the capital. He asks if Duma is in their team. To he was, Duma answers simply, just like you. You, the boss, explodes with rage, shouting, if he is from the capital, he must know how rotten it is. He screams in agony that the kingdom's defenders are driven by greed, and those who hold on to justice are expelled. Duma looks at him with sad understanding. He admits he was also expelled for the same reason, but says he must defeat him to continue his path. The boss rejects his pity and rushes forward, shouting for him not to mock. Laura appears in an instant. Her sword is raised to intercept the blow. She tells him that leaving is wrong, and that the capital's swordsmen must be heroes. Her words drive him even further. He shouts, demanding what she could possibly know about. He punches the ground with his fist. The wild force of his strike cracks and scatters stones around them. Power, he growls that his pride and former self died the day the capital betrayed him. He says that now he is a ghost, sworn to become the captain of the kingdom. Duma looks with pity but understands. The fight is inevitable. A small crumb of stone, lifted by the force, flies through the air. The charged sword hits the swordsman right in the forehead. The main mighty warrior faints from a single tiny stone. Laura looks down at his broken figure. Her determination is unbreakable. Firm, she delivers a strong kick, and his body flies through the air. As he flies through the air, she simply states that bad things are bad. With a clash on the dull edge, the clasp on the boss's cloak snaps. It tears him apart lengthwise. Duma looks at the fallen bandit and says that instead of revenge, he should try to enjoy a second chance at life. Life, or if not, it will turn into Duma, and she will thank him, saying that his actions were exactly as she expected. Royal Knight. It was as if thunder struck him. She knows his secret. Then he pointed at the emblem on her scavenger sword. The emblem, a recognizable sign of the Royal Knights, the most powerful military unit of the kingdom. He wonders why a Royal Knight ended up here, and now understands why even a former fencer from the capital was no match for her. Laura explains that she was also transferred. Duma is shocked that their circumstances are the same. Then she reveals that her final stop is Rotacy. Laura's face lights up with a confident smile, and Duma's heart sinks. His dream of a quiet life alone is officially open. Standing together on the road, he worries about his path, thinking that his slow life has already begun and it is not so peaceful yet. Returning to Grutin, Guildmaster Renisha gathers her adventurers and vows to tame the bandits who sow terror. She raises her hand, ready to give the order to set out. But she freezes, her eyes wide with disbelief at what she sees in the city square. The entire bandit gang appeared out of nowhere. They were tied up and involuntarily froze. He wrote that we were explained. We were transported by powerful magic, but he has no idea who could have done it. From a hidden position, Laura watches the scene and quietly chuckles to herself. The bandit-like leader who was defeated wakes up. He smiles, thinking that if there are people here with such power as the Royal Mage and the Royal Knight, then maybe there is still a chance for the king. He recognizes the magical bonds. This is the work of the court mage. Renaya looks intently at the pile of fallen bandits and cannot understand what happened. Later, Duma walks through the city, completely carefree. He explains to Laura, physically he is not tired, but his head is overwhelmed. He is exhausted from restraining his magic so as not to kill the bandits. And around them, the townspeople are celebrating their cap. While they walk, he comments that fighting without deadly consequences is much harder. Laura seems not to understand what he means. To avoid the growing crowd, he advises them to return back to. Laura agrees but says that first she wants to visit the bathhouse to wash off the dust from. Fight, then she innocently suggests going together. Duma relaxes his face and it instantly flushes bright red. He fixated on her with his gaze and cannot understand anything from her proposal. They run up to the bathhouse fitting room. In a moment, Duma is gripped by real panic. Laura begins to undress right before his eyes. About him, she calmly reminds him that she has no money and cannot enter alone. Finally finds his voice, asks why they are still in the same room, although they have already gone inside. She explains that she is used to bathing together with her sister or with other night allies. Seeing the sign that the owner is absent, she decides, no problem. Noticing his discomfort, she raises an invisible ring and suggests that both wear it, then they will not see each other. Duma looks away and blushes wildly while pondering her strange, determined admirer. Just a moment later, Laura puts on the ring and disappears without a trace. Her invisible voice cheerfully tells him that this is a game, Depressed, Duma agrees to participate. They enter a luxurious stone street bath. Although they are both in the water, the rings make them invisible to each other, still bright red from embarrassment. He forcibly tries to pull himself together, again and again replaying in his head, they do not see each other. He orders himself to behave normally after all, everything is going as it should. But as soon as he looks in her direction, instead of a person before him appears a terrible, slimy, monster-like figure. He panics inside and has no idea what creature is bathing with him, while Laura calmly relaxes. She playfully pours a bucket of water over her head. She giggles and tells him that he also looks like a monster, and he, surprised, helps her. Laura notices a bar of soap on the edge of the bed. She asks him to pass it to her, and he, reluctantly, still agrees. When he hands her the soap, their invisible hands accidentally tug each other. Duma lets out a piercing scream of pure underwear. He apologizes in advance, and Laura simply thanks him, not even worrying about that accidental information. After the ordeal, Duma looks completely and utterly exhausted. He is gnawed by the question, how can a bath be more exhausting than a real battle? Laura, refreshed, says she will wait for him outside. He finds her a little later, sitting by the well in the city square. She is eating a skewer with grilled meat, and he asks what she is doing. She replies that she is just watching people. The strange gleam in her eyes makes him think her hobby is a bit creepier than it seems. He asks where she got the money for this. She says that a stranger gave it to her for the holiday. He immediately scolds her for accepting gifts from strangers. Noticing that her hair is still wet, he adds a bit of magic to dry it and says that she will ruin her beautiful hair. Carefully, she raises her gaze to him and meets his with shining eyes, then sincerely and gently thanks him. Thank you, her smile makes him blush, and he quickly looks away. He suggests, since they are traveling together, they should drop these respectful forms of address and call each other only by their first names. She completely misunderstands everything, thinks he is talking about how they are naked together in the bath. He screams in despair. Clearing up the misunderstanding, they agree. He calls her Laura, and she calls him Duma, and they return back to. That night he lies sleepless, thoughts whirl like a whirlwind, and strange new feelings about the girl who sleeps peacefully in another room swirl in his head. The bed and a new day rises over the city of Grimm. Rodent Laura wakes up and stretches, half lying down. She wishes Duma good morning, and he looks as if he hasn't slept at all. He tells her he will return to the guild to check if the request for a journey to Rodosna is available. Now, during breakfast, they agreed to part ways for the whole day. Laura playfully warned him not to go after power. Duma makes his way back through the city to the travelers. The girl Katiered meets him joyfully and apologizes for the chaos that was yesterday. He asks if everything has returned to normal, and she confirms, yes, thanks to some mysterious heroes. She gushes like a nightingale about the amazing royal court mage and royal knight who saved the city, and tells Duma that he should learn from them. He only laughs nervously. He asks about the Rodosna request, and she asks for his adventure card. He hands it over, admitting it's just a dear request. The girl's eyes widen sharply in shock. She tells him his card is expired not just as of now, but already by 2 generations. He explains that he worked as the royal court magician and asks to restore his status. She says he will have to undergo the trial from the very beginning. The only way to avoid the test is to have a guarantor, but the Duma, unfortunately, admits that it knows no one. The girl looks at him with such pity that he feels completely humiliated. He reluctantly agrees to undergo the trial and pays 1 gold coin as a contribution, resigning himself to starting from scratch as a miserable worker with minimal effort. Frank, the girl from the guild, cheerfully and briskly escorts him down the corridor, explaining that the trial will last only a few minutes. She stops by the door and announces that the head of the magic department will conduct it. The doors slide open and a person appears from inside. Arkodar, a man from the office of the guild leader, represents him and introduces him too. He shudders and freezes, eyes widen in recognition when he sees Duma. He presents himself quite politely and does not even realize that it is connected. He jumped off our stairs and was completely stunned. He asks the Duma to wait and quickly apologizes, immediately raising his glass. He tightly closes the door. Duma and the receptionist are confused by this. Duma stands in the corridor and wonders what is going on here. Radar returns and informs him that the guildmaster wants to see him personally. Finally, the predatory girl panics, grabbed Duma, and demanded to say what he had done, and he insists that he has no idea what exactly he did. When Rodar leads him away, the girl quietly whispers a piercing farewell, ordering him to return alive. They lead him into a room where it is completely dark, and his relaxed expression disappears instantly. He tightly grips the staff, feeling the powerful magical truth. His eyes narrow, he gropes with his gaze through the impenetrable darkness. He understands this is not just a dark room, this is the magical domain of darkness. Carefully sends a test step into the darkness and it ripples like black water. From the floor emerges a shadowy, tentacle reaching to grasp the water. He dodges the attack at lightning speed. A shadowy hand rushes at him from the wall. He bursts upward and casts a light spell to illuminate the magical privilege. He lands, noticing that the spell did not damage the room at all. This confirms, before him is an isolated magical space created by a very skilled user. From all sides, a hail of sharp dark projectiles flies at him. He prepares a powerful protective spell, and his face sinks into shadow. An incredible multi-layered shield of radiant magical circles flares around him, deflecting every attack without exception. He grabs a shard of broken magic and calmly asks if this is too much for a regular test. The realm of darkness shatters like broken glass. Behind the illusion stands the guild master Renisha. She smiles and tells him that he has passed. Then she addresses him by a name from his past, Duma Senpa. He looks at her completely stunned. He struggles to recall her fate. She reminds him, once at the academy, he challenged her with exactly this magical trick. Memory finally clicks. He asks if she is from Magic Academy, and she confirms 6 years have already passed. She says she recognized his unique magic by how the bandits were captured, and that she set up a barrier on our road watch. He asks what she would have done if he were not that person, and she jokes that probably nothing would have been done. Flash of Memories shows how tiny Duma at 12 effortlessly defeated 18-year-old Round, who always saw him as her main rival. Her praise confuses him, and he insists that becoming guildmaster is a much greater achievement. Movement, she says he has changed from a hot rival she desired to a protege who appeared 6 years later than her in June. He asks if she arranged this whole elaborate test just to recall the past. Her face becomes serious. She tells him she needs his help with a matter related to her younger sister. She opens the door and Lyra appears before her. Duma freezes upon learning they are sisters. He remembers how Laura mentioned a sister and asks if they have known each other all this time. Laura innocently explains that they just met, but immediately adds that they bathed and slept together. This makes Ron pale, and Duma yells at her to watch how she works. Words, Laura is innocent. Words throw her older sister, Rana, into magical madness. Rana screams Laura's name and prepares to attack Duma, while Duma panics trying to calm her, not understanding the chaos she caused. Laura simply adds, Duma was kind, you know. No, in the end, she pulls herself together. She decides to postpone punishing Duma and finally addresses the real reason she wanted to see him. She asks him to lift the curse placed on her younger sister. While Laura happily crunches on a plate of snacks, Round explains, a strong curse suppresses her magic and has halved her physical abilities. Laura was so naive she didn't even notice. Round continues explaining, because of the curse, Laura was demoted. They were desperate because even professional curse removers couldn't get rid of it. To this, Duma simply says, then I already removed it. He stares blankly at him, completely petrified and frozen in surprise. She can't believe it. Hey, she exclaims. Even for you, senpai, it couldn't have been that simple. Duma just shrugs indifferently and says something was gnawing at him when he met Laura yesterday, so he just solved the problem. Then, to prove his point, Duma lightly flicks Laura on the forehead. Rana rushes to her sister and checks her neck. The dark mark of the curse has completely disappeared. Rana is stunned. Duma did what neither she nor the team of experts could. Laura, rubbing her head, just grumbles that her older sister is scary when angry. Duma is flustered by the praise, trying to downplay the significance of his incredible tricks by saying he's not that special. Round finally puts everything together. She realizes that both Duma and Laura were unjustly dismissed and sent to the remote village of Rodicina to live quietly. Life in gratitude for saving her sister, Roni promises to arrange a safe and comfortable journey to Rodicina for. But in return, she has one small request. She asks Duma to accompany her sister on the journey and take care of her. Duma hesitates for a moment. His goal is a quiet life, and he knows, if the one who cursed Laura finds out that the spell is broken, she may be in danger again. But he also believes that, as a mighty royal knight, she will probably be able to protect herself. Noticing his hesitation, Round enters angrily thinking he is calling her a precious little sister, trouble. Duma quickly mutters, no, that's not what he meant. Tears stand in her eyes. She circles around him and begs, asks him, as a sister, to protect Lord. Impressed by her sincere love for her sister, Duma closes his eyes and agrees to her request. Rona is delighted, claps her hands, and says they will leave the very next day. Duma, a little confused, mutters that he will be under her care. Then Rana gives him a very serious warning. If he dares to touch her sister, she will kill him. Duma firmly promises that he will do nothing of the sort. And his quick promise angers Duma again. Huh, are you saying my sister is not magical? She demands. Duma is twisted, full confusion, she does not know what to answer. Ron laughs and says she was joking. She reaches out her hand and sincerely asks, let him take care of her dearest sister. Duma looks at her for a moment, then firmly takes her hand. Of course, he says confidently. They shake hands, the promise is sealed. Rona wishes them both a safe journey. To Rhodocina, the next morning bright sunlight pours over the city of Gruton, announcing the start of a new adventure. Before them stands an incredibly energetic traveler, long red hair, a wide smile. In the morning she exclaims, I am Yorbai, an adventurer of rank A. You two are clients this time, right? Right? Her crazy energy is too much to handle so early in the morning. Duma barely smiles as Laura politely introduces herself. You will promise them that with her as an escort, the road will be completely safe. Yorby tells them to get into the carriage. A long road lies ahead. As soon as Laura is in the carriage, she calls to Duma. She hands him 2 skewers of grilled meat, thanking him for listening to her sister's request. Duma takes the food and thanks her in return. Duma's face becomes serious and determined. When the carriage rolls out of the city, Duma mentally repeats to himself, since he took on this job, he will see it through. But his plans are disrupted as soon as he notices Laura's snack, and he starts scolding her again for accepting food from strangers. Half a day into their journey, Yorbe says, no one ever wants to go to Rhodocina. The one who specifically chose the place because of its remoteness is surprised. He asks what she means. Yorb grins and explains that the reason is that Rhodocina has 3 Ds. She lists them: danger, distance, and desert-like appearance. Laura looks surprised upon hearing exactly where they are headed. To prove his point, Yorby adds that strange things happen on this road. Just then, the carriage jerks sharply and stops. Above the giant, long neck of the creature from the lake rises another one, blocking their way. This is a gigantic land dragon. Yorbe calls it bathing land dragon, but Laura recognizes its species named Suspansu. Duma is shocked that such a gigantic monster has such a melodious name. The giant Suspansky continues to relax in the water, completely blocking the only road forward. Yorby explains the problem. Suspicious keys are famous for taking incredibly long baths, about 3 days. They are simply stuck. Duma frowns. She clearly does not like the idea of waiting 3 days. He calmly decides there is no other choice, the dragon must be defeated. Yorb and Laura are shocked at how casually he suggests fighting the gigantic creature. Yorbai says even as an A-rank adventurer, her attacks will not leave even a scratch. Duma turns to Laura and asks if she can decapitate it with 1 blow. She replies that she can, but it is too high, she cannot see it clearly from her position. Duma nodded and the plan is already forming. He tells Laura that he will make a hole so the dragon will stumble and the rest will be up to her. He kneels down ready to invoke magic. When her orders are clear, Laura rushes into battle. She appears with a dazzling sprint, effortlessly dodges the powerful tail strikes of the dragon, and stuns it. The ground cracks from the dragon's strength, but Laura uses the flying debris as steps, dancing in the air and avoiding every attack. Your Baywatches are affected, they admit it. She will have to try hard just to dodge, but Laura looks like she's not even trying. Duma, still preparing a spell, notes Laura's movements make the dragon sway unstably. He grabs a handful of soil, quickly assessing its composition, making sure it is perfect for the spell he has in mind. Fingers to the ground end, he releases magic with a loud scream. Activate. Underground, beneath the extensive stretch, a huge magical circle flares up. The spell instantly turns the solid ground into deep mud. The giant dragon exclaims in surprise as it begins to sing. And Dumas is not finished yet. He casts an even more complex spell. In the air, a beautiful ladder made of pure light formed it, grew right above the ground, and stretched all the way to the dragon's neck, creating a path. For his last move, he casts a powerful buff spell on Laura, and she becomes even stronger. Laura feels a surge of new strength and raises her gaze ready. The dragon roars as she swiftly bursts upward the magical stairs. In a brilliant flash of silver, Laura's sword cleanly and sharply cuts through the air. Sorry, she whispers. The massive head of the dragon is cut off with one perfect stroke. Laura calmly watches as her powerful attack finishes off blow after blow. She freezes for a moment on a platform of light high above the ground. Both Duma and Yorb remain completely silent from the incredible display of power. Wow. Yorb manages to say a word, holding her mouth wide open in shock. After the battle, Laura begins to fall from the sky. Duma calmly creates another magic circle on the ground. It catches her and allows her to land safely. Rebecca is completely overwhelmed by enemies. Who are you two, after all? She stammers. Laura introduces herself by her official title, Royal Dane. Yorb freaks out, realizing she is riding side by side with a member of the legendary Royal Knights. She turns to Duma and asks who he is. he just smiles and says he is just an ordinary everyday maid. The name finally clicks in Yorb's head. She recalls the legend. Really not? Are you truly Dame Laura of Shining Light? She exclaims with excitement. Laura confirms that she is. Yorb beams and immediately asks for an autograph and gets it right away. When Laura writes the signature, Yorb asks Duma if the royal mages also have cool titles. Duma, disappointed, says no. Now that the dragon is defeated, only the giant body remains to be dealt with. Yorb asks what to do next, and Duma says, leave it to me. He takes out a magical device that looks exactly like a modern smartphone. He explains that it is a tool for long-distance communication, and that they can use it to call the merchant and sell a valuable part of the dragon. The merchant offers them an incredible 250 gold coins for the materials. Beatty wildly rejoices and shouts that this is a whole year's salary. Duma looks horrified. He recognizes the magical tool, something he himself once conceived, as a simple, independent educational project when he was 10 years old. Yorb, not noticing his despair, offers to introduce him to the shop where she bought the expensive device. Duma can only bend over in a sigh. An evening falls on the ground, the group sets up camp, and Laura and Yorb leave. Beatty gathers firewood for Duma and breathes a sigh of relief because he won't have to go through another awkward bathing experience with Laura again. A little later, they sit by the campfire and share stories. Laura learns that Yorbai did not come from a rich or noble family. Then she notices something on his cheek and carefully wipes it off. Conversation turns personal, and Yorbai admits that she has a partner. Then she pulls out her magical phone and shows them a photo of a neat animated man who declares, 2D men are absolutely the best. She quietly adds that 2D men will never betray you. Considering the conversation an unnecessary hassle, Duma decides to simply ignore you. The next day their journey continues, and Yorb shows off his impressive skills, effortlessly defeating a bunch of monsters attacking their carriage. After an incredible fight with the dragon, the rest of the journey passes quietly. Yorbai will effortlessly handle any other threats. She blushes and says that fighting in front of two such powerful people is awkward, but Duma and Laura are truly impressed by her Class A skills. Finally, they reach a clearing and see a small village hidden in the valley below. I see it, your basic shouts. There, Rhodocene. Duma and Laura peek out at their new home for the first time. Their eyes are wide, open surprise and curiosity mixed in their gaze. The village is bigger than they expected. The cute little houses somewhat remind them of Groot. Saying goodbye, Yorb thanks them for the wonderful journey and says she felt as if Laura had a little sister. Duma thanks her for the help. Then Laura announces that she is hungry. Yorbi says she is returning back to Grooten after finally selling the extracted, much-needed supplies at the local guild. She advises Duma and Laura to head to the guild first to find a place to stay. They follow her advice and very soon find themselves in front of an old wooden building. Duma frowns at the dilapidated premises. Is this the Rhodokin Guild? But it's falling apart, he says. They walk to the abandoned guild hall. It stands all alone at the very edge of the village. They tear open the old doors and go inside. Inside, just as rough as outside, it's full of a motley company of travelers, and they all stop and fix their gazes on the two newcomers. Duma groans, already feeling a headache coming on. This is definitely not the peaceful beginning he had hoped for. A man with a stern face, pointed ears, and dark marks on his face approaches them. He says he does not recognize their faces and asks if they are travelers. Duma approaches the counter, hands the man identification documents, and explains that they want to settle here. The man carefully studies their papers. His stern expression is broken by a warm smile. The documents seem to be in order, he says, and extends his hand. Welcome to Rhodocena, comrades. I have returned. While they shake hands, Baston asks if they have already found a place to stay. Duma says they just arrived and wants a place that is big, sturdy, and quiet. Then Baston returns to Laura's question about what she prefers. She simply nods along with Duma, causing him to sigh heavily and tell her to think for herself. The best for misunderstanding, he thinks they are a couple who want to live together. Duma immediately panics and shouts, "No, we are not," while Laura stands calmly nearby, as if watching from the side. Baston laughs and says it was just a joke, but his face suddenly becomes serious, and he tells them that a problem has arisen. He explains, in Rhodocena there is not a single free house at all. Last year in the previous month, a terrible storm came, and monsters took advantage of the panic to attack the village. They destroyed more than a dozen homes. Duma is in despair. A traveler sitting nearby confirms the news, adding, even if they started building a new house today, it would take at least 6 months. Duma's shoulders slump as if all his strength is fading. The dream of a quiet life is already falling apart. Never mind, he muttered. But as soon as he heard this, Fasten's gaze flashed. No, wait, he says, there is one place. He tells them about a huge abandoned estate forest mansion on Ghost Hill. Its owner died many years ago, but strange things happened there. lights turn on by themselves, and anyone who tries to demolish it is immediately overcome by pain. Duma is scared by the thought of living in a haunted house, but Laura's eyes light up with excitement. Sounds fun, she says. Duma frantically protests in despair, insisting that it is obviously a haunted house, and that if the two of them live together, all sorts of other problems will arise. But Laura just looks at him with big, sad, pleading eyes and asks, "No, can mine say no to her when she has such a cute face?" Pakon aside, Duma tells Baston that they will take the estate. Laura quietly rejoices, while one of the other travelers prepares to lead them. The adventurer leads them out of the guild building. They begin a short walk to the estate. Laura, as always, starts complaining that she is hungry. As they walk along the path, Duma senses something and calls into the forest. A young man with red, tousled hair and a scar above his eye steps out from behind a tree and blocks their way. He sneers at Duma and calls him a pathetic mage pretending to be a real traveler. The man calls himself Groza. He is a member of the group, led by Klaus from combat art. Duma puzzles, what could these fighters of this combat art need from them? Grotto explains, everyone who wants to live in Rhodesina must pay tribute to his group. Duma calmly asks what will happen if he refuses. Grotto laughs, threatening that they won't stay long in the village if they oppose his group. Duma simply thanks him for his concern and turns to leave, completely ignoring the threat. Grazzo is left speechless by his calm defiance. Grotto watches Duma's back intently, his hands clenching into fists. "That's why I can't stand mages," he growls. He explodes in a fit of rage, draws his sword. He shouts that ever since a mage stole the girl he liked, he has hated all mages. Duma feels that the man is about to kill and glances back ready for a fight. But just before the tense final clash is about to begin, the quiet forest is suddenly pierced by a very loud rumbling. The sound comes from Laura's stomach. "I'm hungry." She breaks the tension. Grazzo is so confused that he seems to give up the fight. He thunders that he will go and report to his boss that Klaus about them, and that they better remember what happened. As he walks on, Duma can't shake off what that was. He thinks to himself, hating all mages because of an old emotional wound is a petty and completely insignificant reason. As they approach the destination, the sky above them darkens and becomes stormy. The road ahead becomes increasingly overgrown and eerie. Duma looks up at the dark clouds. "So this is Ghost Hill," he says, noticing how the weather suddenly worsened. While Duma is anxious from the eerie atmosphere, Laura seems to just enjoy herself, looking around with a brave and joyful smile. Finally, they reach the forest estate. It is a huge, majestic building. It even looks exactly like from a scary story where there are ghosts. Duma grits his teeth and tries to look brave. He admits this is more plausible than he thought, and he sweats a little. The title, "The Secret of the Haunted Mansion," appears over the eerie image of the house. "There's simply no point in standing around wasting time," Duma says, trying to cheer himself up. "Let's go inside." But as soon as he turns back, he sees Laura nervously gives a short salute. "Huh?" he asks again. Laura quietly says she changed her mind and will wait for him outside. Duma is furious. "Why?" he shouts. "You yourself said this place would be good." Laura admits, now that they are here, she actually is scared too. Duma refuses to go in alone. "I won't allow it," he says, grabbing Laura and forcefully pulling her toward the entrance door. The heavy door creaks as it opens, revealing a dark, dusty, and cobweb-covered large foyer. I hurriedly look around myself on both sides and try to appear calm. "Inside, everything looks as it should, right?" he says. "Now I have no idea what will happen next." Laura points to the top of the huge stairs. They were glowing, she says simply. A small flickering ball of dark, ghostly energy emerges from nowhere. "What is that?" Duma Stemmer shuddered in surprise, and Laura looks at him and feels a strange, familiar recognition. A quiet, ghostly voice echoes in the corridor, whispering one command: "Get out." The voice grows like an echo from all sides, and darker balls of energy appear one after another. The whole chant, "Get out of here." The ghostly force intensifies. Heavy pieces of furniture hover in the air. Duma reacts instantly, grabs Laura and rushes aside just in time, because a heavy wardrobe falls and crashes where they were standing. While he exclaims, shocked by the ghost's strength, suddenly he is seized by a sharp pain. Frightened, Laura clings to his hand with all her might. "Laura, let go," he shouts. "Oh, oh, oh." Both of them are thrown into flight as another cabinet flies at them, thrown with force. They crash together onto the dusty floor around them. Hum chants, and the furniture hangs in the air. Duma gets up irritated. "There is nothing to be done. I didn't want to destroy our new home, but I guess I have no choice to fight back." He shifts his gaze to Laura. To her surprise, Laura stood up and calmly moved toward the source of the ghostly voices. Duma shouts at her, warns it's dangerous, but as she approaches closer, recognition flashes in her eyes. "How sweet," she says, and warmth is heard in her voice. "Sweet," thinks Duma, completely confused. How could she find this creepy manner of sounding sweet? He focuses and listens more carefully. Suddenly he realizes, Laura is right. Behind the eerie echo, the voice of a very small girl can be heard. She is trying hard to sound scary. Duma activates his magical senses and examines the mansion itself. He is twisted by what he finds. It's not just that the building is simply covered in spells, the magic is the mansion itself. The ghost gets angry as soon as it is exposed and releases a powerful wave of energy. The room is filled with a dazzling white line. Magic safely swirls around Laura, and she stands completely unharmed. Duma decides to find the core of the magic that creates this illusion. Shall we look for it? He asks the Lord. He quickly makes a plan. He tells Laura the magic is too complex for him, so he will focus on suppressing attacks, and she should rely on her own senses to find the sword. Above Laura's head, a small bright ring flashes as soon as she activates the ability to sense magic. She immediately finds the source and points with her finger toward a long dark corridor. She leads them to the very end of the corridor. There they find a single door. Duma uses magical vision and sees. The source of the mansion's power is concentrated beyond the door. There, behind it, a complex magical lock is formed. He prepares to begin a long and difficult process, unraveling the magical law. But before he can start, Laura decides to act head-on. With a heavy swing of the sword, she breaks the magical lock in two. "What are you doing, Laura?" Duma screams in horror. "You just thought about it. That doesn't mean you can use physical force." She calmly replies that she only wanted to check out of curiosity if she could cut through. They both look at the door. Now it is open. The door suddenly opens. A stone ladder, descending into darkness, appears before the eyes. At the very bottom of the stairs, they find another door with a nameplate. On the plaque, the name is inscribed in a fussy, old-fashioned handwriting. Duma reads the nameplate Ellen A's and Nicholas Room. He feels that the magic here is the strongest and warns Laura to be careful. And Laura, as always headless, just grabs the door handle and opens the door. "It opened," she says indifferently, while Duma is panicking behind her. From inside, the room stretches bright, gentle light. The room looks like a cozy workshop. It is full of books and magical instruments. And in the very center of the table, which softly glows with warm light, sits a small, cute plush teddy bear. Doomsayers are struck and freeze. He says it is a house spirit. Laura asks if it is not a boogeyman. Duma explains, Boggart is a spirit born in a house filled with love. Over time, it merges with the house itself, and its sole purpose is to protect the home and its master. Quietly lifts the plush teddy bear. He holds a small, soft toy in his hand. When he holds it, his face changes to one like Shun's. "Laura, help me," he says, and urgency rings in his voice. "What should I do?" He explains the Bogadar must disappear when its master dies, but sometimes they remain if the love for the master and the home is extraordinarily strong. He tells her this little spirit was alone for years, spending its own life force to protect the home, and waited for a master who would never return. They both look at the small plush teddy bear with sad eyes. They feel its magic is almost completely exhausted. The end. Duma says that maybe they can save it by pouring their own magic into it, but it will only work if the Bogart voluntarily recognizes them as its new master. Laura reaches out and covers it with her palm. "I want to save this," she says firmly. Duma nods. "I know you are not." They know. They stand before the flickering Boggart. Duma speaks to it gently, explaining to the spirit that they want to help. "So please," he says, "let us in." They stand silently, waiting for the spirit's response. The warm glow around the plush teddy bear fades. Duma notices the magical energy in the room has changed, but does not understand how exactly. The talisman teddy bear disappeared. With a heavy heart, Duma understands their attempt has failed. They gloomily climb the stone, stairs back toward the main part of the estate. The thought says that the whole house was made of Boggart magic. If it were at full power, it could even move the entire residence, but instead it remained here waiting. With Bogart gone, his magic will soon completely fade, and the magical estate will disappear. "Too bad," he says, "so let's retreat." When they reach the top of the stairs, Laura stops, looks around, and is amazed. The gloomy, dark, and eerie foyer has turned into a bright, clean, and incredibly beautiful hall. Has this place always been like this? Beautiful. The threatening, eerie atmosphere vanished without a trace, replaced by warmth and calm. Duma was completely confused. What is happening? While Duma and Laura try to understand how the mansion suddenly changed, a gentle, friendly voice exclaims, "Are you surprised, sir?" Before them stands a young girl with light brown hair tied into two ponytails, dressed impeccably with a friendly smile on her face. She stands proudly, hands on her hips, looking as if she is about to get to work. Duma and Laura are completely shocked. Who is this child?" they ask together. The little maid scolds Duma and says that it was he who wandered into her house and caused trouble, which completely confuses Duma. He quickly turns back to Laura, trying to explain that he did nothing, but Laura only silently looks at the maid, and understanding appears on her face. Laura reaches out and gently strokes the maid's head. Plush toy, she says. The maid happily, quietly squeezes with joy. The maid giggles, laughs with happiness. They finally understood it. Laura agrees. The girl has the same magical power as Bogart, whom they found in the basement. The girl perfectly bows in a curtsy, lifts the edges of her skirt, and proudly introduces herself. I am Nicola. I am the Bogart of this house and the most perfect servant. Duma exhales with relief. Their attempt to save the spirit worked. Nicola explains they infused her with their magic, so she was able to return to her original human form. Then she turns to Duma and asks, "So who is this master?" When Duma has to pause, tears freeze in Nicola's eyes. Is everything really bad? She cries. Will Nicola be left alone again and die? Laura throws Duma a stern, disappointed look. Duma quickly calms down. He explains that they plan to live in this house, but he feels it would be unfair to become her new master when she served her previous one so faithfully. Nicola falls silent for a moment, lowers her head, and mentally reviews his words. She remembers her dear former mistress, a kind witch named Ilinazi. Now she understands. Ilinazi went on a long journey and will not return. Nicola raises her gaze with a bright, determined smile. She says that Lady Ilinazi will always be her precious lady. But now she has a new duty. Bowing low and solemnly, she proclaims, her new pride is to serve Lord Duma and Lady Laura, those who saved her life. Laura is so moved by Nicola's devotion that she picks up the little servant and tightly embraces her in powerful arms. Nicola raises her gaze to Laura, a bit confused, but happy that she was accepted. Laura, now her official mistress, tells Nicholas that she understands and accepts her service, and then voices her first and only order. She announces that she is hungry and wants tea and snacks because after arriving they haven't really eaten properly. Nicholas's face lights up with pure joy. Nothing pleases her more than serving her masters. Yes, absolutely, she cheerfully encourages herself, hurrying to take up her duties in her beautiful restored home. And so begins the new, strange life of the former palace mage, royal knight, an ancient house spirit with a joyful tea party in their luxurious new residence. Just settling in, Duma runs through in his mind. His plan for a quiet life brought him to a magical estate on the outskirts of the village. He inspects the basement workshop left by the previous owner of the estate, Alines. Flipping through her notes, he shockingly realizes she was a brilliant witch and her research was decades ahead of its time. Nicola proudly boasts, her former master was the most powerful witch in the world, so strong that she built the entire estate in one day. But the strange thing is, her name and achievements were completely erased from history. When night falls on the earth, Duma contemplates the mystery. Why should the existence of such an incredible witch be completely erased? The next morning he is greeted by a joyful Nicola. Good morning, master. Duma, in simple underwear, thanks her and says he slept wonderfully thanks to her skills in making the bed well. He tells Nicola to continue preparing breakfast, and he himself goes to wake Laura. The story tells that Nicola is a phenomenal cook. Last night Laura ate a whole mountain of food, and because of this, the little maid almost cried tears of joy. And for Nicola, the greatest happiness is to cook for someone with such a healthy appetite. Taking care of Laura turns out to be very rewarding work for Nicola, and Duma is simply happy that she is nearby and helps. Duma goes outside and sees Laura has already woken up. She's standing in the middle of a rigorous morning sword practice. Duma is thrown back by the sheer force of her movement. He freezes in admiration, watching her rush like a continuous flash. Her sword cuts through the air with incredible speed and power, raising powerful gusts of wind. He understands this is not just a training routine. This is a real combat form far beyond the usual sword dance. Focusing on her movements, he almost sees a phantom opponent exchanging sword strikes with her and feels the blows of a battle that does not actually exist. He understands this on a new level of respect. This is intense, dedicated training of a royal knight. Laura finishes the practice with one last powerful stroke and calmly freezes while the energy around subsides. Good morning, Duma says. That was simply clumsy. It was incredible. Are all royal knights capable of this? Laura says that in fact she was the only one in the royal capital who trained so intensively. Everyone else thought she was eccentric. Changing the subject from her eccentricity, Demi pulls a little magic into action and creates a cool, refreshing towel. He hands it to her. Laura just looks helplessly at the towel. Duma awkwardly asks if she wants him to wipe the sweat off her. She ignores the towel and announces that she wants to take a bath again, inviting him to go with her. No, he shouted. He frantically explains, if the peasants found out he bathed with 2 girls, his reputation would be ruined and it would be extremely difficult for him. He flinches, remembering how Nicola tried to join him in the bath last night. Then he recalls why he even came here. Breakfast is ready, he says, trying to make her focus. That's why I came to call you. As soon as she hears the word breakfast, a huge explosion rises in the forest. In her excited fuss with the food, Laura accidentally unleashed a powerful final move. It carved a huge trench in the ground and destroyed a section of trees. After their eventful breakfast, Duma prepares to head to the village. Laura and Nicola see him off. Laura correctly guesses that he is going to the guild to report about the estate and Nicola. She suggests that Nicola go with them. Nicola happily explains, as a witch, she is magically bound to the house and cannot leave. She promises that while they are away, she will guard the estate with all its splendor. Duma and Laura return back to the guild of Rotochin. Baston listened to their report about the estate. He nodded approvingly, thanked them, and explained. He suspected that the cause of the rumors was Boggart. Duma asks what he means by the assessment. Baston says, from the beginning he knew they were not just Efrank adventurers, because it was clearly felt how Laura has colossal, boundless magical power that even overflows. As a reward for the revealed secret, and as a welcoming gift, Baston officially hands over the estate and all the surrounding land to them. Duma is so overwhelmed with joy that he can barely speak and sincerely thanks without stopping. Then Duma recalls another reason for his visit. He tells Baston that on the way to the estate, he was harassed by Grazzo Amiento. Stan's face darkens. He says that Klaus is his old friend, and he would never order anyone to demand money from the peasants. He is gripped by anxiety. Grazzo is probably using his friend's name to intimidate people. Since his duties do not allow him to leave the guild, Baston asks Duma for a favor, to go and check on Klaus instead of him. Duma sees true anxiety and seriousness in Baston's gaze. His thoughts scream in protest. This is exactly the insidious state he came to Rhodocina to escape from. He is already about to politely refuse, but Laura, with her strong sense of justice, immediately accepts the request instead of him. Cornered, Duma has no other choice, he must agree as well. Baston thanks them and exhales with relief. Laura notices the painful expression on Duma's face, but he forces himself to smile and pretends that everything is fine. To prove that the request is from him, Baston gives Duma a luxurious medallion with the image of a pretty woman with pointed ears. When asked who she is, she quickly blushes and proudly says that she is his wife. Duma and Laura headed to the eastern part of the village, to the place where the poisoned swamp is, the place where Klaus lives. Duma already regrets agreeing to one more troublesome mission. One cannot help but think that for the supposedly peaceful village of Rhodocina, there are too many eerily named locations. On the road, Laura gets distracted by beautiful flowers. She asks if she can pick them, but Duma, eager to finish the mission as soon as possible, says, no hooking. Finally, they reach the edge of a large, murky-looking swamp. To their surprise, the poisonous swamp turns out to be quite beautiful. Laura, who ignored Duma and still picked the flowers, holds her bouquet and admires the view. When Laura takes a step closer to the water, Duma shouts for her to wake up. A loud, angry voice thunders from the trees, "You idiot." A sharpened, heavy object, an axe, flies through the air past Duma's head. Sometimes the axe lands right in front of Laura. It hits the target with a crash, explodes on impact, and knocks her back. The thought rushed to her side to check if she was okay, but a figure emerged from the forest. An incredibly muscular man with long, light hair and a beard stands before them. He shouts at them angrily, asks if they want to bring death upon themselves, and warns to stay away from the swamp. Duma and Lara are completely confused by his sudden aggressive appearance. Suddenly, the beautiful flowers in Laura's bouquet instantly wither and crumble into black powder. The man explains, not only water is deadly poisonous, but also the air and the earth. He shows that no plant grows right by the water. He says he is guarding the swamp to protect ignorant people like them from getting lost and dying. Noticing that the man just saved Laura's life, Duma sincerely thanks him. The man calms down and apologizes for shouting. He introduces himself, Clout. Duma introduces himself and names Laura. He thinks to himself that Klaus seems like a good person, not a villain, as Grotto portrayed him. And just as these words hang in the air, Klaus shows. Duma just released the lock. Klaus raises the medallion and peers into the image inside. His face instantly changes from friendly concern to cold recognition. He sharply turns to them. All friendliness disappears from him. Duma says that Baston asked them to deliver the medallion and watch over him. When Baston's name is mentioned, Klaus's face twists. A mask of pure furious rage flares up. Duma is completely stunned by his sudden and wild reaction. Klaus draws his sword, mistakenly believing that they work for Baston. He is choked with frustration. If he had known, he would have allowed the swamp creatures to kill them. Prepare, he says in a low and dangerous voice. He rushes at them with incredible speed and strength. Duma quickly raises his hand to erect a magical barrier, realizing that a week-long semi-inflammatory spell won't be enough to stop his fierce attack. However, Klaus has a unique and dangerous ability. He literally sees the flow and structure of magic, so he can notice any weak spots. Genevieve snorts contemptuously, noticing the hastily built barrier of Duma. Instead of one powerful strike, he unleashes a barrage of attacks. They fly like a whirlwind of steel, striking the most vulnerable spots in Duma's magical defense. Duma watches in horror as his mighty barrier shatters like glass all around him. With a sharp onset of panic, he realizes this is very, very bad. He has never met a non-mage who could so easily break his magic. He remains completely defenseless while Klaus's weapon approaches closely. But at the last possible moment, silver flashes. Laura rushes forward with blinding speed to intercept the attack. Her own sword manages to block Klaus's powerful strike just before it hits Duma. Laura calmly tells Duma to stay aside while she prepares to confront the clouds. Duel shouts Laura's name, frightened, but she does not retreat, stands firm and ready to protect him from Klaus's powerful attack. Aha, Klaus is impressed. He praises Laura for seeing through his complex attack and blocking it, yet still wonders how long she can hold on with her slender arms against his overwhelming strength. His eyes narrow as he prepares to press the attack. Laura meets his gaze with equal strength and does not step back an inch. A bright flash blinks. This is the start of their duel. Their swords clash in a furious exchange of blows, tool sending sparks in all directions. Clouds rush forward with incredible force. Laura meets each of his powerful attacks with her own matching blow for blow. The force of their clash sends a shockwave outward, flattening the grass around. Klaus continues to attack, angrily and wildly squinting. Laura Perry strikes at the face, calm and focused. Their blades clash again in a loud, powerful collision. Duma watches from the side, stunned to the edge. He knows that Klaus is a legendary warrior, but Laura fights him on equal terms. Klaus croaks hoarsely from tension, feeling his strength beginning to fail in battle. He lets out a small, almost crazy laugh, and it is clear that he truly enjoys fighting such a skilled opponent. He swings the sword with all his might, but Laura effortlessly parries the strike. Her face remains unchanged. In a sudden lunge, Laura ducks under one of Klaus's swings and strikes him in the side with a quick kick. While the fight continues, Duma notices something incredible. While Klaus begins to slow down, Laura, on the contrary, becomes faster with each exchange of blows. Laura's eyes narrow as she prepares to end the fight. With a final, decisive strike, she neutralizes Klaus's sword flies through the air. She stands over the defeated warrior, her own sword pointed straight at him. Laura has won. The Duma is so impressed that it cannot help but clap its hands. Oh, how cool, he whispers. Klaus clicks his tongue in annoyance. He admits that he hasn't had such a serious fight for a long time. To avoid falling flat on his face, he mumbles that maybe he is already getting old since he lost to a little girl. Laura sharply corrects him simply. I am too strong, she says, and there is not a drop of arrogance in her words. Hearing her simple, sincere statement, Klaus bursts out laughing loudly. He sits on the ground, humiliated but happy. He admits that he lost and praises Laura for a wonderful fight, saying that he feels incredibly good. Duma is completely confused by his sudden change of mood. What the hell is going on here? Take my things, become even wilder. Klaus leads them back to his small, simple cabin in the forest. He opens the door with a loud bang. Now dressed in a simple cloak, Klaus's entire appearance has changed. The wild rage has disappeared, replaced by calm and a friendly presence. He apologizes for the attack, explaining that he really did not intend to kill them. Duma breathes a sigh of relief and notices. Now the atmosphere is completely different. Laura confirmed what Klaus said. She saw through his attacks. Despite his incredible magical power, he had no real intention to kill. Duma asks why he attacked so fiercely if he did not want to harm them. Klaus promises to explain everything. Assumption, this is about adventurers who used Klaus's name to cause trouble. Klaus confirms this and says that these men were once his students. Once he tried to stop them himself. But he was defeated. Duma is shocked that such a force as Klaus could lose. Klaus explains that it was a 1-against-2 fight, and his former students were supported by 2 mysterious and extremely powerful people. He tells them that these 2 powerful figures are the Royal Knight and the Royal Court Mage. The image of Laura and Duma flashes in his mind. He explains that he waited for Bastion to make a move, and since Bastion sent them, he decided they were strong, so he used the fight as a test of their skills. Duma is annoyed that Bastion did not tell them any of this. After they confirmed their strength, Klaus's determination hardened even more. He has a message to obtain additional information. He orders them to inform Bastion. Next time he must come himself and not send others to do his work. Leaving the Cloud's cabin, Duma thanks Laura for saving him. He notices that she is behaving too quietly and thoughtfully. Laura raises her hand to her chin, and on her face is an interesting, almost embarrassed expression. Maybe that man he just doesn't see, she muses aloud. Duma is puzzled by her strange question. Returning to the guild, Bastion confirms Laura's suspicion. Klaus is really blind, and that is why he came to live and wrote all this. Scene Bastin tells that Klaus is a famous war hero, known throughout the kingdom as Klaus of the martial arts. 10 years ago in the Battle of Garmusha, he defeated 100 giants. Duma looks back 10 years and realizes, back then he himself was tormented by exhausting training under the watchful eye of his own master. He asks how Klaus's blindness is connected to this. Stan explains, after the war Klaus lost his sight. He was overwhelmed by deep despair and he was exiled, so 2 years ago he arrived in Rodocina, where he now rules a dangerous, poisonous, swampy area. Duma is stunned. The man who fought so incredibly for Laura was not only a war hero, he was completely blind. He understands that the exile cliché is just like theirs. Bastin calls out to Duma, sharply bringing him back from his thoughts. He again thanks Damak and Laura, saying that now that they know the situation, he will handle the rest. Duma asks a question that has long been gnawing at him. If Klaus is blind, then why was he given this medallion? Bastin explains it is a wedding gift from Klaus, and he knew his old acquaintance would recognize the item by touch. Meanwhile, in a dark and secret place, a mysterious figure in a cloak uses a crystal ball to watch Duma. The man reports to the cloaked figure. Duma and Laura look just like ordinary travelers. The figure replies that even so, they still need to warn them and order them to remain neutral. The man bows and agrees to carry out the order of the major of the royal court. The cloaked figure snickers mockingly. It turned out that this was the same corrupt department head whom Duma had headbutted in the capital. Graco's report on Dumas' arrival in Rodocina was a fortunate coincidence. He knows. Dumas is not some ordinary adventurer with an F level. The bad wizard stares into his crystal ball, his eye flashing with fury. He declares that Rodocina is now his territory, and this time he will take everything in Duma. His hatred for the royal mage Dumas burns increasingly brighter. The next day back at the estate, Nicola rushes breathlessly through the corridors and calls his master. "Master, this is a horror," she screams, and panic trembles in her voice. She bursts into Duma's workshop. The room explodes with a flash of light and smoke. When the smoke clears, Nicola screams in horror. Only a pile of black ash remains on the floor from her master. When Nicola lets out a bloody, piercing scream, the body of Duma begins to gather from the ashes. He asks, "What happened?" Calmly explains, supposedly, he was just in the middle of a magical experiment that went wrong. He has already cast a regeneration spell on himself, so he is fine. Nicola breathes out so relieved that tears immediately burst from her eyes. This is not a problem, she cries and grabs his hand. Something terrible has happened. Come to the garden. The beautiful garden of the estate is completely overgrown with strange, fluffy mushrooms. Nicholas sobs points out that all her precious vegetables have been taken over by parasitic fungi. She even gave them all names. In a fit of furious rage, she declares war on the mushrooms, vowing to show them the wrath of irreparable swamp. Hopelessly but quietly, she shook her head, ordering herself to calm down. He tries to reason logically about what could have caused this. Nicola is convinced. The mushrooms came from hell just to tease her, and Dumi thinks she might be unexpectedly close to the truth. With his magical senses, he finds, the mushrooms pulse with magical power, something he has never seen before. Nicola, with curls in her eyes and sharp little teeth, declares that she will take revenge. Dumi has to forcibly hold her back, repeating that a vengeful life is futile. He realizes he needs help to trace the source of this strange magic. He returns to Laura, and she just looks at him blankly and picks at his cheek. Bring our heads outside to investigate. He plans to trace the magic, but quickly realizes it is no longer needed. A very obvious mushroom trail leads from the estate deep into the forest. He admits that he knows little about mushrooms, but notes some of them look bright and appetizing. When he unconsciously reaches for one, Laura suddenly grabs his wrist and stops him. He asks what happened, stunned by her sudden movement. He sharply lowers his gaze and shudders. His hand was about to touch one of these strange mushrooms. He doesn't even remember reaching for it. Laura firmly says that the mushrooms are dangerous. She grabs his hand and pulls him along the path, ordering that they need to leave quickly. As they set off, a new day begins. Duma suddenly very clearly realizes that Laura is still holding his hand. He feels her warmth and hears her breathing, and it reminds him, despite her incredible strength, she is still just a girl his age. He starts to tremble with embarrassment. He shakes his head and tells himself not to give in to the mood. Laura looks at him puzzled. He begins to ponder the mood. He notices a strange, sweetish smell in the air, comes from the millions of mushrooms around them. He is worried that this smell makes his head woolly and forces him to feel Laura so vividly. He is so lost in thought that he crashes right into Laura's back when she suddenly stops. "Looks like we're already here," she says, looking straight ahead. Duma raises his eyes, amazed. They have already reached the destination. As they walk along the path, they come out onto a clearing and freeze in place. In front of them stands a mushroom so gigantic that it rises above the trees like a mountain. Duma is silent, stammering that the mushroom might be even bigger than their estate, but Laura raises her hand and orders him to wait. On the road right in front of them, a large gray wolf suddenly appears, growling threateningly, taking a defensive stance. The wolf looks strangely excited. Instead of attacking, it nervously looks around, then disappears into the bushes. Duma tries to understand what happened. While this is happening, the wolf begins to whimper and convulsively tremble without stopping. She stops right at the bottom, near the base of the giant mushroom. In a terrible moment, the mushroom stalk releases a cloud of spores, and the wolf completely dissolves into dust, which is then absorbed by the gigantic mushroom. Duma screams in shock, watching as the giant mushroom seems to grow even larger after devouring the wolf. Duma breaks out in a cold sweat. He realizes the sweet smell was a trap to lure creatures like the wolf and himself, and then consume them as food. He thanks Laura for stopping him earlier when he was about to touch the smaller mushroom. But the danger is not over yet. Another wolf emerges from the forest. Its fur is snow white, and it slowly, stealthily stalks them. It shifts into a low, aggressive stance, ready to leap forward. The closer it gets, the clearer the terrible truth becomes. A small, spotted mushroom is growing directly from the back of the wolf's head. Duma looks around and sees they are surrounded by a whole pack of these mushroom-controlled wolves. He warns Laura to be cautious. Two infected wolves leap, immediately lunging straight at them. But they cannot match the royal knight. Laura moves in one smooth, blurred motion. Her sword flashes, and she effortlessly cuts down the attacking wolves. She gracefully lands between the two falling creatures without a single scratch. Duma and Laura stand back to back, ready to face the rest of the pack. Duma knows it is time to act. He hovers in the air beneath him. A complex magical circle flares up. He unleashes a powerful magical attack, which crashes into the ground with a roar, and the entire wolf pack collapses. He realizes the strange behavior of the wolves is due to the mushrooms on their heads, and the source of this magic is a giant mushroom. With a decisive cry, he gathers his magic and fires a powerful beam of energy right at the base of the giant mushroom stalk. "Dorma, it works," exclaims Laura, as the wolves around begin to wither and fall, scattering. Duma sends a victorious shout. He declares that he hates mushrooms, and that for dinner they will have mushroom curry. But just as he was about to finish it off, the giant mushroom begins to rapidly shrink at an incredible speed. It deflates, contracts, until it becomes no bigger than a person. And instead, there sits a tiny, extraordinarily cute girl with long hair and a mushroom cap on her head. She raises her gaze to them with her big, tearful eyes. Duma and Laura are completely stunned and fall silent. The eyes of the little mushroom girl fill with tears as she looks at them. Duma is completely puzzled. They stand in the now empty clearing and stare intently at the strange little creature. "You consider a human," she suddenly screams, and this knocks Duma off his feet. She immediately begins to plead for her life, begging the almighty and generous people to forgive the sweet little Noko. Duma ignores her flattering words and immediately gets to the point, asks if she is the one who infected their garden. Noko, the mushroom girl, fiercely denies it. She proudly declares that she will never settle in the garden of the great man, but still infected the garden of the miserable boggart, insisting that her flawless investigation showed no human being had lived in the estate for hundreds of years. Duma deadpans that they have been living here since the day before yesterday. Noko freezes, realizing that her investigation was not so flawless. When Duma points out her mistake, Noko begins to tremble with fear. She tries to explain herself, saying she grew a giant mushroom only to spread spores and live peacefully. She says it was all for survival. Noko asks if that means she is forgiven. Duma, clutching a ball of dark magic in his hand, replies, does she not mind being punished by a stronger force? He tells her that apologies to them are not enough. In the background looms the terrifying demon-like Nicola. Duma warns Noko, if she does not apologize to the boggart whose garden she spoiled, Nicola will forever turn to the dark side. Noko simply laughs at the very thought of apologizing to the boggart. She proudly declares that she is a noble fairy and will never bow her head before a miserable swamp dweller, but Laura cuts her off mid-sentence. Laura places a small, ordinary-looking mushroom on the ground and tells Noko to apologize to it. Duma is glad that she understands the situation. Since the matter is settled, they decide to head back to the estate. As they walk, Noko continues to grumble, saying it's ridiculous, as if a noble fairy like her is being oppressed by some miserable human. Duma notices she is amazingly energetic. He asks if she is unwell and wonders why she is weakening if she was at full strength. Noko accidentally blurted out the truth. She admits that her parents recently kicked her out of the house. She saw these good manners and decided to adopt them. Duma suddenly realized what was happening, So that's why you were tugging at my magic while we were walking, he says. They finally return to the estate. Noko faces an angry Nicola. He is trembling with rage. Duma tells Noko that this is the dark side she created herself. So it was you who lost Nicola's gardening, she says, pointing at him with a reproachful finger. Unforgivable. She rushed forward and screams for revenge for her precious vegetables, and Duma has to hold her back. Noko, without any apologies, insists that mushrooms are a higher form of life than vegetables. Nicholas shouts that there is no universe where that would be true. Two fairies glare at each other ready to fight. Duma and Laura watch, without any emotions, and Duma notes that this touching moment between the fairies is not cute at all. They forced Doomseyes and gave Noko the order to apologize, saying that it was necessary. This is the only reason she was brought here at all. Noko is truly stunned. So I still haven't been forgiven, she asks. Annoyed, Nicola freezes and snaps a look at her. Noko cannot let go of the offense. Suddenly, Nicola lets out a piercing scream. Naya, she shouts, finally breaking into anger. Noko is frightened by the enraged Bogart and immediately changes her tone. Don't stop me, master, Nicola cries. This is the only thing I will never be able to forgive. Noko announces that she has a better idea than apologizing. She will politely live in their style. She continues to argue that mushrooms are better than vegetables. She boasts that with her power she can grow a harvest much tastier than any simple boggart can, and just now new plants begin to sprout right at her feet. She adds that if she lives there, she can feed on the magic of Duma as much as she wants. Nicola immediately grabs Duma by the hand and declares that his magic belongs to her. The two fairies begin to fight over him. Duma's eyes are pitiful. He understands they are not fighting for him, but for his magical power. He longs to find out if there is someone who truly wants him not for something, but for himself, and just then Laura announces, hungry again. Far from here, back to the royal capital. A woman with long red hair in a maid's uniform shows a photo of Duma to an information broker. The broker does not recognize him. He notes, Duma is not registered as a traveler in the city and she must work in the capital. The woman's companion, a mysterious figure in a dark hood, almost revealed that Duma is not an adventurer. They thank the broker and leave. When they are alone, the hooded figure says, jackpot, let's go. They walk through the city streets and talk about how to find Duma. The hooded figures know well, given their current status, going on a reconnaissance to the royal palace is definitely a bad idea. A horde of rough-looking men rises up. These shout back at them. The leader says he knows the silver-haired mage they are looking for and offers to take them to him. The hooded figure decided to find Duma at any cost. She agrees to their offer and tells them to lead her further. The men lead them out of the city and drive them into a dry, creepy forest. The men surround the two women and laugh. They mock the noble-born girls, saying they are so naive that they followed them straight into a trap. They noticed the maid and decided that the hooded figure is someone important, so they decided to start with her. And the maid Natalia steps forward to protect her mistress. Step back, she says coldly. I will not allow you to touch my lady. The men just laugh at her bravery and grab her by the hand. As Natalia commanded, she did not worry at all. She squeezes the man's wrist, and he sharply whines in pain. With one smooth motion, she throws him over her shoulder and slams him into the ground with a crash. The other men shudder. Strange, thorny vines suddenly grow from the ground around them. Natalia pulls two pointed baton sticks from her sleeve. She calmly introduces herself, Natalia. She is a servant and guardian of the lady, fully trained to handle emergency situations like this. The men, furious that they were outmaneuvered, rush at her. Natalia meets their attack with a hail of blows, easily defeating the opponent. She stands over their unconscious bodies, Victoria. She turns to her last opponent, the man who held her lady hostage. Enough, she says. Look here. The man constantly holds a sword close to the hooded figures. He threatens Natalia, ordering her to behave if she does not want her princess to be punished. Natalia simply looks at him with pity. You are very unlucky, she says. The cloaked figure speaks for the first time. If you had continued dealing only with me, she says quietly, lowly, and threateningly, your injuries would have been much lighter. A mighty whirlwind of magic bursts from her and hurls the man into flight. The wind tears her dark cloak away, revealing a beautiful, elegant woman with long silver hair. Her wide, pointed witch's hat falls from her head. She gracefully catches the hat. Men really are idiots, aren't they? She asks with a confident smile. She looks down at the fallen man. She admits she followed him only because she thought he really knew something, but he turned out to be useless. Who the hell are you? The man screams in terror. The woman creates a magical circle and throws a burst of energy into it. He freezes in placeboed by her magic, completely paralyzed. She smiles. A dangerous spark flashes in her eyes. She says she has long wanted to blow off steam after a long journey and that he chose the wrong person to mess with. The man's eyes widen in absolute horror. A bloody, horrifying scream echoes through the forest. In a moment, the woman interrogates the frightened man. He confesses. Everything he said is true. A few days ago, he saw a silver-haired mage leaving the city with a group of travelers heading north. The woman understands. This is why she could not find Duma in the capital. She knows what the north means. He could have gone to only one of two places, Grudin or Rhodesina. She immediately decides to follow him, but says that first she needs to sew a new robe. Natalia tells her that she does not need to hide her face and that she should be more aware of her high status. The woman smiles and her true identity is revealed, Princess Alexandra. Princess Alexandra, with a look full of determination, declares, "Wait a moment, Royal Court Mage Duma, I am looking for you." We returned in time to the luxurious imperial palace, bathed in the soft light of a cloudy sky, and found ourselves again at the moment when Duma's journey in the distant town of Grudin was just beginning. In the luxurious office, Emperor Yosel III lets out a long, dramatic sigh and directly, without any hints, complains to his assistants that he has absolutely no desire to attend the planned political event. He laments that the neighboring kingdom is too insistent with the invitation to the party dedicated to the 10th anniversary of the truce, and his stern companion immediately questions the lethargic behavior of her ruler. A young woman with noble gray hair joins the conversation with a knowing smile and says, "Diplomacy is important, but the true intentions of the kingdom, why they invited her specifically, are painfully obvious." Her backpack quickly understood the hint and asked if it was about a political marriage. The princess confirmed exactly that and compared it to trying to throw a rabbit into a den of wolves. The emperor nervously sweats, trying to backtrack, claiming it was only a metaphor, while his companion stares back silently checking if he really just called Princess Alexandra a rabbit. Exhaustion weighs heavily on the emperor. He slumps over the table and admits, refusing the invitation will cause diplomatic problems, so if only someone else could take it upon themselves. At the end, patience finally breaks in her presence, and she sternly reprimands him, stating that no worthy emperor should speak that way. Their argument is suddenly interrupted by an urgent shout from the guard behind the large doors. The guard reports an emergency, requiring their immediate attention. The guard rushes into the room with news so powerful that the entire hall trembles. Princess Alexandra has fled, only a note remains in her room. The emperor, however, remains strangely calm. She just showed the note. He says only that she is going to meet an old friend, and he immediately concludes her bodyguard Natalia must be nearby. Her maid begins to relax at this news, but the relief is cut short by a sudden, slow horror. She remembers that yesterday she told the princess about the marriage proposal. He tries to calm down, hinting that they definitely know whom she went to, but this only angers his companion more, and she wildly shouts his title. For a moment, the emperor's expression becomes stern. He thinks of one person, the brilliant Mage Duma, a former classmate of his daughter, and a man he secretly wishes was still in his service. The scene shifts forward in time. We find ourselves on the bustling streets of Grudin. Princess Alexandra, already in travel attire, strides forward with unbreakable purpose, and her faithful maid Natalia stays close. A whisper from the crowd full of admiration at the sight of such a luxurious woman, while Natalia notices how much attention they are gathering, whereas Alexandra looks completely indifferent. The crowd also whispers admiration for her cold, graceful manner, but Natalia quietly begs them to be more restrained. Alexandra turns to Natalia with a playful smile. She says the attention does not bother her, but her companion quickly takes over the conversation and directs it back to the urgent mission to find Duma. Now seriously, Alexandra admits that questioning the locals yielded nothing, so she decides the next step must be this: find a traveler who is familiar with Rue de Rodesna. Like on cue, Natalia notices a possible guide and calls out to get his attention. The person they stop turns out to be Yorba, lively Ranka adventurer, who bluntly says she just returned from an exhausting journey and is not taking new orders. Her words are like music to Alexander's ears. She has already found her leader. A broad, captivated smile spreads across her face as she celebrates the incredible luck they have had. Alexandra approaches Yorbi with a friendly smile, shows a magical device with a portrait of Duma, and asks if this man knows the traveler. Yorb's eyes narrow with suspicion, and she refuses to give any information until she knows for sure what exactly their intentions toward him are. With a mischievous sparkle in her eyes, Alexandra leans closer and playfully hints that she might just want to play a little prank on her old friend. And Bea's expression instantly hardens into a hot, scorching gaze when she declares that Duma was her companion in travels, and that her loyalty to a friend is not for sale. She demonstratively throws a bag of money on the table and issues a challenge. Let them try to take the information from her by force if they dare. The more money they offer, the stronger her determination becomes, but Alexandra just smiles and says she likes people who are so willing to meet halfway, so she agrees to tell them everything she knows. Yorba remains completely silent, staring at the sack overflowing with gold coins, while explaining, She was personally hired by the guildmaster to escort the democratized court mage to Rhodesina. Title Royal Court Mage, Skox Alexandra, but Yorby continues, says that he was traveling together with an incredibly powerful royal knight named Lara. The news hits Alexandra like a physical shock. A dark, frightening aura spreads from her as soon as she realizes that Duma is traveling with another woman. Calmly, Natalia informs the frightened Yorby that she has just stepped on her lady's personal mine. Alexandra completely loses her composure. Her voice trembles with rage as she shouts how he could travel with another woman while she was desperately searching for him. Her fury explodes in a solid dome of magical energy, cracking even the very stones of the pavement around her. And her power suddenly fades completely. She looks around and realizes that she has been locked inside a powerful magical barrier. She raises her gaze and sees a calm woman with long, flowing hair standing right in front of her. The woman is Renaya, the guildmaster of Gruden. She informs the princess, as long as the adventurer's doors are open, she cannot allow such disorder. Yerbei Gasp is in shock, choking and trembling, uttering the guildmaster's name in complete disbelief. Still seething, Alexandra throws a challenging look at Renisha, declaring that the guildmaster will be the perfect opponent for her to vent her anger on. Renisha accepts the challenge with her own smile and effortlessly raises a whirlwind of magic. Two powerful mages face each other. The air crackles with energy as they prepare for a spectacular duel. Their spells collide in a dazzling flash of light. The blast wave roars so loudly that the whole city trembles. When the dust finally settles, your harbor looks delighted. Two women stand side by side, both whole and unharmed. The tension eases as Alexandra suddenly bursts out laughing, clutching her stomach, while Renizia and Natalia look on with smiles full of amusement. Confused Yorby can only comment on how much stronger the guildmaster has become, while Natalia tries to comprehend what just happened. And still bewildered, Yorby asks the most obvious question. They know each other, right? Both Renizia and Alexandra nod, in confirmation implying yes, they really were classmates back at Magic Academy. They begin to reminisce, and Renizia teases Sasha about her competitive nature, saying that Duma took first place in their class, she took second, and the princess third. Natalia wisely suggests continuing the conversation somewhere more private, and the completely exhausted Herb can only agree. Natalia politely interrupts her lady again. Pointing to their dust-covered clothes after the duel, she suggests that maybe they should clean up. The scene shifts to calm hot baths. Alexandra and Renizia giggle, recalling how they were drawn in after the reunion. Alexandra asks Renizia about hiring Yorby to guard Dama-sensei, and Renizia snorts. Duma was just as surprised to learn that she was Guild Master, and as soon as Elindra darkens her gaze and asks about the woman traveling with him, suspicion hangs in the air. Who is Lara? Renejo explains that Lara is her younger sister, who was also demoted to Rhodesina, so she asked Duma to look after her, to Alexandra's immense relief. Confused, Renizia asks why the imperial princess goes to such incredible lengths to find Duma. A theatrical smile appears again on Alexandra's face as she prepares to tell them the whole story, the one that began 6 years ago. She sharply falls into memories of her younger, arrogant days at the academy, admitting her pride was broken when she met the 12-year-old genius student named Duma. The memory shows how Duma effortlessly defeats her in a duel, then advises her to stop causing so much trouble for everyone. And instead of mockery, he gave her a radiant smile and declared that from that day she would be his servant, a moment that made the young heart tremble and quicken. Returning to the present, a blushing Alexandra tells how she became Duma's student, while Yorbe and Natalia comically emphasize the huge difference between a servant and a student. Renizia asks how all this could be connected to her escape from a political marriage. She is surprised that her friend still hasn't guessed. Alexandra passionately lays out her luxurious love plan, a story about how step by step to win his trust and respect, moving from servant to student. Her fantasy ends with a love story for the ages where they go beyond their roles and become one forever. She believes such a fate is already written in advance. While she dreams of flying to his side, the scene abruptly switches to Duma and Laura. They stand before sudden and terrible danger in the forest. The monster, a white tiger, bigger than anything they had ever seen, lets out a rumbling roar that echoes through the trees. Duma and Laura can only freeze in shock, staring at the colossal beast, a creature that seems to have just stepped out of a legend. The story rewinds a few hours back. Duma leaves the manor for a walk and promises his maid, Nicola, that he will register their new home with the guild. He asks the mushroom fairy Noko if she wants to join, but she coldly refuses and says she is busy photosizing, and Nicola immediately corrects her. Noid and Noko demands more juice, but Nicholas sharply jerks away. Let the freeloader get it herself. Duma lets out a tired sigh, begging his talkative roommates to at least try to get along while he is away. We switch to the Adventurers Guild Rodosna, where Guildmaster Baston stands in the center of a tense quarrel. A bold young man insists on his point, saying Baston has a duty to protect the village until Duma and Laura enter through the door. The youth repels the newcomers with a single glance, deciding they are weak and not worth his time. He introduces himself as Thomas's son from the village elder and speaks to Duma with disdainful superiority, implying he should feel impressed. Duma and Laura politely introduced themselves, but his attitude did not faze them at all, and Thomas explained, a dangerous hellhound has appeared in the forest. He insists that the settlement is in mortal danger, and that the guild is useless without an S-rank adventurer who will take on the beast. Thomas's tone becomes threatening. He cautiously hints at a threat to Baston's family to make him cooperate. Before the situation could escalate, Duma calmly steps forward and asks if all it takes is for someone to defeat the hellhound. Thomas and Scoffs thought that someone like Duma might be lucky enough to succeed. Grotesso Meat suddenly appears and offers to accompany them on the mission, himself a move clearly hiding a hidden motive. Grazzo introduces himself, and Duma casually mispronounces his name right under his nose, which annoys him greatly. The best thing is to quietly thank him. Duma intervenes, and Duma assures his friend he is glad to help. Laura's eyes light up with excitement at the thought of a good fight, and the incredible trio sets off into the dense forest. Grotto leads ahead with a confident, self-satisfied smile while Duma and Laura follow, feeling this is no longer just a simple monster hunt. Duma examined the strange weapon on the staff in Grot style like a club weapon and realized, for a fencer to carry such a thing is incredibly strange. Duma again calls Grotsk by the wrong name and the traveler snaps, angrily correcting him. Doom sometimes asks if Grazzo has ever heard of someone named Bills May, but Grazzo just snorts, as if that were such an important figure, they would never have anything to do with him. Duma changes the subject and asks, does Grotto have a personal grudge about that very insult? Guildmaster Grotto admits he sees Bastion as an obstacle to his plans to make the city a better place for exiles like himself. Duma clenches himself into a fist, preparing for a long story as Grotto begins to tell about his twisted past. He tells them about his headless youth, a life of gambling and crime that eventually cost him an eye. He describes Rhodocina as a dead end, a town full of hopeless adventurers, all competing for survival. Then two mysterious figures appeared, supposedly a royal court mage and a royal knight, and brought them new hope. Duma realizes these are probably Klaus's wicked apprentices. Grazzo explains they were promised paradise. In the flames of fiery rage, Grotto reveals his plan, to crush the Adventurers Guild and take control of the village for himself. Duma looks again at the strange staff. He asks if it was a gift from the court mage of this royal court. Then he reveals the dark secret of the staff, a cursed instrument that converts the user's life force into magical energy. If you continue to use this thing, Duma warns grimly, you will die. Grotto's face twists with rage. His furious anger throws the image aside. Don't pretend you know anything, he shouts, insisting that the crew is a precious gift, symbolizing the miracles he himself has seen with his own eyes. He ignores the warning and waves the staff, declaring that his order is to get rid of them both. You are dying here, Duma, he growls and lunges forward with a deadly intent. Duma remains calm, only says that he tried to warn him, but Grot shouts back that he didn't ask for any warnings. Shut up, Grotto yells and releases a burst of dark energy. Take care of your own life. At that very moment, a terrifying hellhound with glowing white eyes leaps out of the shadows. Duma instantly understands the trap. He sees that the appearance of the hellhounds was perfectly orchestrated to create a deadly distraction. For a moment he recalls his exhausting training back, then he fought hundreds of hellhounds at once. This one beast is a trifle. But he notices this hellhound is undead, like a marionette, not a living creature. Before it could launch an attack, Laura darted like a flash of light. She intercepted the beast and hurled it into flight, while Grazzo froze with an expression of complete disbelief. Duma grabs the creature's body and reveals the magical threads controlling it. He explains, the wonder that Grazzo saw was nothing other than forbidden necromancy. He easily deflects the puppet's attacks, remarking that both the stick and the spell are amateur work. Suddenly a dull rumble shakes the entire forest. Nearby, a new gigantic force awakens. Duma shifts his gaze to Grotto, and his expression becomes serious. He senses that this new threat is of a completely different level. The earth shakes wildly as a colossal figure rises from the depths. Stones and trees are hurled into the sky. Duma recalls reading about the local legend, the Forest Guardian, and from the dust emerges the fierce face of a white tiger. The legendary creature reveals its full form. The tiger is so huge it almost erases the entire forest from sight. Its eyes blaze with ancient power. Laura and Duma freeze in awe and look up. It is the legendary white tiger, the sacred creature of the forest. Pale Cave questions why it is here, and Duma grimly explains. His forbidden necromancy has desecrated the tiger's sacred territory and awakened its fury. Duma roars, "Run!" but it is too late. Dark flashes of spiritual energy erupt from the ground. They seize the grotto and seal it. Paralyzed with fear, the grotto cannot move while Duma quickly casts a protective spell. The tiger releases a mighty blast, but Duma's barrier holds. The beast screams and flies backward. Duma calmly states, the grotto will endure, but its injuries are just punishment for disrespecting the forest. Duma and Laura face the tiger, which growled as if about to launch an attack, and realized, this is not just a warning. The holy beast is already ready for a real fight. Duma reaches out and reveals a wide smile. He accepts the monster's challenge, ready to help it blow off steam. His eyes flash with excitement. An epic battle begins between the former chief royal court mage and the legendary holy beast. The fight begins instantly. Laura jumps high into the air, then easily lands on the back of a colossal tiger. Duma assesses the destruction after the first attack of the tigers, struck by their wild power. He sends Laura a look full of determination. It's their turn to attack. The white tiger, shaking Laura off, crouches low to the ground, eyes stubbornly fixed on Duma, ready to pounce. Duma raises his staff and releases a complex magical circle in 7 layers. He utters the spell's name, Earth Cannon Barrage. From the ground emerges a hail of huge magical projectiles woven from stone and soil, striking the tiger with devastating force and exploding. While the artillery barrage continues, Laura takes off into the air and flies through the chaos, using it as cover for her own attack. She lands a powerful spinning kick directly on the tiger's jaw. The impact wave ripples outward. But an invisible magical barrier stops her sword. Duma explains, like a spirit, tiger magic is instantaneous and feeds on the very sacred foundation of the earth. Realizing they need more power, Duma prepares a mightier spell. During the chant, a colossal 13-layer magical circle forms. Great Earth Hammer Strike. The hammer strikes the ground, and the beast roars defiantly. Its might shatters the huge spell completely. The tiger rises on its hind legs, preparing to bring down its massive paw and crush them utterly. The Duma knows a simple defensive illusion will not save. He needs to do more than just repel the attack. He casts a powerful binding spell, and the incredible weight of the tiger's claw presses so hard that everything in the ground beneath him cracks. Laura, Duma shouts, calls her for help. She joins him, and together they combine their strength, releasing a huge burst of energy that pushes the giant paw of the tiger's back. Since their combined strength works, Duma quickly devises a new strategy. They concentrate all their potential on one point. Understanding the plan, Laura uses magical platforms as steps. She jumps higher each time, gaining incredible speed and power. She dives down like a comet, her sword aiming at a single point on the tiger's magical barrier end, striking with all her might, breaks through it, leaving a small crack. There is a crack in his barrier. Leave the rest of the lichen to me, Duma outside, while he sees his chance. He casts the most powerful and complex spell of all, a 29-layer composite magic circle, a nearly unheard-of level of magic. And this is the last word of the spell, an unexpectedly simple name for such a complex technique: child. From his staff bursts a compressed beam of pure white energy. It pierces the crack in the tiger barrier and strikes directly at the sacred beast. The spell explodes with a colossal flash of light so bright that it floods the entire forest, leaving Duma and Laura gasping from exhaustion. They look at the result of their battle. In place of the forest, a giant crater is carved into the landscape. Duma falls to the ground, exhausted. He explains that the spell was a completely new type of magic just mastered by himself. He is completely broken. Laura, just as tired, simply says that she is hungry, and this time Duma sincerely agrees. As they walk away, he wonders if Nicola and Noko are getting along, when suddenly, he notices a tiger-striped tail trailing behind them. They turn around and see a white tiger, just shrunk to the size of a large cat, with a dull, calm expression on its face as it trots after them. Duma and Laura can only stare, frozen, completely shocked and confused by this unexpected turn of events. Far away in a dark room with bookshelves, a cloaked figure with glowing eyes intently watches a crystal ball, observing the events in Rhodocina. The scene shifts to Grotto. He is wrapped in bandages from head to toe, reporting his defeat to a mysterious figure, who coldly sums up their complete, unconditional fiasco. Another masked figure cynically brushes off their story about the white tiger, saying it is a children's fairy tale, and adds, no human could have defeated such a creature anyway. From inside the bandages, Grotto whispers about weekly protests, assuring that he is not lying, but the figure silences him with a sharp command. The masked villain notes, whatever the case, Duma already knows about their plans, and he must be eliminated as soon as possible. He turns to the nervous top, asking if all the other preparations they talked about are going according to plan. The warrior descendant gives Tomason one last chilling reminder: never forget that you are kept alive precisely for this purpose. Returning to the Duma estate, they got involved in an argument again. Nicola and Noko argue about what to name the new tiger. One favors the striped one, the other the white tiger. The discussion heats up fully. Nicola defends the cute name, while Noko stubbornly insists on his more noble option. After the fight, the tiger curled up and followed them home, so they decided to keep him. Duma finishes Baston's report, and he is completely exhausted by the story about the necromancers, the legendary sacred creature, and the new magical favorite. Baston stammers that his head is a bit dizzy. He clearly cannot comprehend everything that just happened. Later, Baston comes to the estate and finds himself in the middle of the naming dispute. Nicola and Noko continue to quarrel. They immediately turn to the poor guildmaster and demand that he choose which name is better. Trapped, Baston cunningly avoids choosing a side and suggests, let everyone in the house decide together. In the yard, Duma asks Laura she is relaxing on the flying carpet he created himself what she thinks about the name. Lazily, Laura mumbles, pancake, and stops, looking into Duma's eyes, who says she asked not about a snack but about the name. The tiger playfully pounces on Laura. She flinches for a moment, then sits down wrapped in his soft fur. Embracing the big cat, Laura suggests a new name, Fluffy, but Duma says deadpan and emotionless that it is not a real name. Duma raises a finger to his chin, thoughtfully compresses the thought, and tries to combine all ideas into one perfect name. After a minute of reflection, he finds a solution. He proposes a new name. Nicola's eyes light up. He likes this short, cute name. Noko also joyfully exclaims, if it sounds like an ancient word meaning tremor, then it is perfect for the white tiger. Laura quietly smiles. She is happy that the word Laura can be a nickname for her idea, Fluffy. Quickly and with a smile, impressed, a compliment to Duma for managing to bring together all three different ideas so successfully. So the tiger was officially named. The whole house gathers around the new friend and calls him by that very name. The tiger, now called IF, lets out a joyful growl, overflowing with joy, and suddenly grows again to his colossal size and playfully pounces on the group, scattering everyone in different directions. Baston screams in horror, certain that his spine or ribs will now be broken by the gentle, sacred beast. Calm week passed after week 2 Sundays, and Duma says that an even more explosive guest is about to arrive at the doorstep. On the hill above the village, Princess Alexandra and Natalia finally appeared. Alexandra solemnly declares that she can finally make out Rhodesina. With determination, she gazes into the city and swears she will finally see her beloved Professor Duma. Natalia gives a word of warning, reminding the princess that 6 years have passed, but Alexandra brushes off her words, completely confident in the man she remembers. She closes her eyes, lost in a warm but somewhat inaccurate memory of how they parted last time. In her romanticized memory, Duma touches me with his finger and promises, I will definitely come for you someday. Alexandra cheerfully heads to the village, and Natalia, reflecting, thinks that her lady is completely blinded by love. Natalia's face hardens. She gives a silent, deadly oath. If Lord Duma proves unworthy of her lady's feelings, she will remove him. Entering Rhodesina, Alexandra looks around with a smile and finds the so-called backwater frontier town quite charming. Her pleasant mood is completely spoiled as soon as she notices several clumsy hooligans loitering on the street. The thugs notice 2 pretty newcomers and approach them, offering to show them the city. One of the hooligans brazenly places his hand on Alanger's shoulder, but he is immediately repelled by a powerful magical barrier. Alexandra coolly throws her off the shoulder and does not let herself be touched for a moment. Just don't touch me with those disgusting hands, she says, her voice cold as ice. I have a meeting with Professor Duma. Enraged by her refusal, the bandits shout to their own, grab her, but a calm voice orders them to stop. A solitary figure walks towards them through a swirling vortex of energy, sighing heavily. Even getting to the village without problems is not working out. The bandits tremble from the overwhelming presence of the alien, choking, repeating his name in fear. Sir. Turns out this is Klaus from Battle Arts, a legendary warrior hero and hated enemy who 10 years ago turned the tide of the war. Klaus seems to sense Allegrassi's presence, but brushes her off as just an ordinary little girl. In blurred movements, Klaus draws his sword and sharply cuts right across Alandra's neck, and instead Natalia screams out of fright. The blade freezes just millimeters from her skin, and she doesn't even flinch. Klaus glances and notes, this is definitely not just some little child. Before Klaus can react, Natalia rushes into battle, her own daggers already in hand, thrown to protect the princess. Show respect, Natalia. Natalia shouts, holding her weapon at the ready. You stand before her, Her Imperial Highness, Princess Alexandra. Klaus smiled, finally understanding where that incredible confidence in her came from. Alexandra calmly tells Natalia to put away the weapon, reminding the war hero that as a hero of the kingdom, he is on their side. She continues with unbreakable confidence and says that even her father, the emperor, admitted Klaus surpassed him in skill. She looks him intently in the eyes and asks with a gentle smile, a man with such understanding would never draw a sword for the wrong cause, really. Klaus lets out a short laugh, it seems as if he snapped, and recalling that lately he keeps running into incredibly cheeky girls, says this. He apologizes to the princess and explains that he was forced to test her to check if she was not an enemy. Dress's eyes flash with sudden understanding and excitement. She exclaims what it means, he knows her teacher. When the suspicions were confirmed, Alendra's restraint instantly flipped. The former tension disappeared. She tightly squeezes Klaus's hands and gratefully babbles that he is the second most wonderful man she has ever met, after her teacher. Cloak later tells his friend Baston about this meeting, explaining that he apologized to the princess. Then he suddenly realizes his mistake. He completely forgot to tell the princess about Duma's roommate Laura. Seizing the energy and finally confirming the direction, Alexandra grabs Natalia and tears off at full speed, shouting that she will finally go to see him. She excitedly points with her hand at the huge estate on Ghost Hill and, checking with the locals, confirms that Duma lives there. When she gets very close, magic flashes in Alexandra's eyes and she greedily activates the remote viewing spell to see his face. Her magical vision focuses on the territory of the estate. She sees Duma standing very close to Laura and gently holding her face in his palms. Alexandra's warm smile instantly changes to a shocked, twitching expression of rage. Without a second thought, she breaks the silence, releasing a giant beam of energy that flies across the entire sky and crashes into the ground right next to the estate with a dull thud. Returning to the estate, Duma holds a small dart in his hand, which he just caught midair during training with Laura. They both look up at the sky, confused by the explosion that suddenly flared up and the sparkling dust falling from it. A furious scream flies above them, and Alexandra rushes down from the treetop, flying towards them like a meteor, dazzling and merciless. Duma and Laura are completely stunned together. Synchronously, they let out a scream of shock. Alexandra breaks away and falls right in front of them, pointing her index finger at the bewildered Duma. A magical hoop ring appears around Duma, pinning him to the spot while he shouts in panic. She lunges at him and, running up, strikes fiercely with her leg. He falls to the ground, and she screams that he is about to kiss another girl. Duma shouts from beneath the ground, asking what she is even talking about, while Alexandra, with tears in her eyes, calls him the worst. He tries to explain that Laura just wore her usual training clothes, but Alexandra does not believe him, accusing him of making excuses. It is then that Noko and Nicola appear at the door. They are drawn by the commotion and politely ask if there are guests. Alexandra breaks off her tirade, her eyes widen as soon as she sees two small non-human figures. Her brain shorts out at the very sight of the little mushroom girl and the maid, and she shouts, "You even have a child now." Duma, nervously sweating, tries to stop the commotion and get at least some answers. He starts with the most important question, looking at the fierce princess who attacked him. Who are you? The question hits Alexandra like a physical blow. The world around her seems to crumble as she realizes, after 6 long years, he doesn't even remember her. Stunned by shock and a broken heart, she sinks to the floor and groans that she hates this and should never have come here. Duma tries to calm her, addressing her as Sasha, but she fiercely snaps back. He must not call her name so carelessly if he has definitely forgotten who she is. He tries to back away, insisting that he doesn't remember her because she mentioned his promise to come for her, but he doesn't remember saying that. Alexandra looks down at him, heartbroken, and whispers that he has forgotten about that too. Duma waves his hands wildly, blushing, as he tries to explain that he hasn't forgotten anything. It's just that she really, really has changed. Alexandro's anger disappears instead. A hopeful blush lights up his face as his words reach the addressee. She blushes madly, completely misinterpreting his awkward words as a confession that she is beautiful, and this terribly annoys everyone watching her. Nicola finally breaks the silence and asks Duma who this lady is, forcing him to start. Introduction. He introduces Princess Sasha, Alexandra, his longtime classmate, and she proudly says that Sasha is his student. After that, he introduces her maid, Natalia. Nicola, Noko, and when the white tiger appeared, he introduced himself to the newcomers. Alexandra and Natalia, are completely confused by the strange collection of residents. Finally, Duma introduces Laura and explains that she is a royal knight. Alexandra's friendliness disappears. She steps forward, eyes narrowing. So what, Laura? The two women meet, eyes. A tense silence hangs between them as they size each other up. Breaking the tension, Alexandra extends her hand and smiles warmly, saying that Renesia asked her to take care of Laura. Laura simply says yes and takes the offered hand. Barely touching hands, Alexandra's smile instantly turns into a defiant snarl of a rival. She lunges with a firm grip, wanting to personally test Laura's strength. Her confidence instantly crumbles when the hand she raised herself is crushed by Laura's strength, immense and effortless. In his frantic crying, Alexander falls to his knees and begs Laura to let him go. Laura apologizes and says it was just a reflex. Later, inside the estate, Alexandra treats her shattered arm while Nicola brings her medicine, and Natalia reminds her lady she brought this upon herself. Blushing, Alexandra admits she foolishly got into a fight with Laura, and to change the subject, Laura asks Nicola to bring a bathtub. Nicola turns to Alexandra and politely asks if Lady Sasha would also like a bath. Before Alexander can respond, Duma gets up to leave, but Nicola quickly intercepts him, insisting that he stay and rest. He explains that he has run out of materials and needs to go buy more, promising to return by sunset. The thought walks alone along the quiet forest path, returning to the village. One of those thugs who was there before hid in the bushes, watching how he leaves and noting how convenient it is now he is alone. The bandit leader Garza confirms to his men that the woman who beat them is still there, ignoring their warnings about Klaus. The shadow hides Garza, and he snorts disdainfully in response to the warning. Who cares about Klaus, he declares. Thanks to the power I received from that person, he is no longer a match for me. Turning back to the estate, four women, Alexandra, Lara, Natalia, and Nicola, all relax together in the large bathhouse. Nicola regrets his careless, inviting phrase, as the air thickens with tension under Lara's heavy gaze. Alexandra finally breaks the silence, directly asks Laura what her relationship with Duma is. When Laura looks confused, Alexandra passionately talks about her 6-year love for Duma and how she ran away from home just to be near him. Her voice breaks with emotion as she declares that she will never agree to him living with another girl, and Nicola panics, because this fuels the love triangle. Laura, still completely innocent, finally seems to guess. She smiles and asks, so you like Duma, Sasha? Alexandra confidently states, even if Laura and Duma are in a relationship, she does not intend to give up. Her bold statement only further embarrasses and humiliates Laura. Alexandra presses on, demanding to know what kind of relationship they have at all. Natalia quietly reminds her lady of what she had already told her before. She repeats her warning again. 6 years is too long, and Duma may no longer be worthy of the princess. When someone speaks so badly about Duma, usually calm Laura angrily puffs her cheeks. Natalia shudders when Laura sharply and fiercely defends Duma. Even Alexandra is confused by the unusually restrained nighttime outburst of emotions. Embarrassed, Natalia instantly apologizes profusely for her harsh words. Laura and Alexandra Shara look at each other. A quiet temporary agreement arises between them, reinforced by mutual respect for Duma. They rise in the bathtub itself, the rival forgets for a moment, and they stand together as allies. Meanwhile, Duma finishes shopping in a quiet Radicina alley. Having gathered everything needed, he decides it's time to return home. When he turns the corner, he is immediately swept into the clouds. Klaus greets him and tells about his meeting with Princess Sasha. He pats Duma on the shoulder and teases, saying that he is so popular with the ladies, but embarrassed Duma insists that's not true. Duma's face suddenly becomes serious as he asks Klaus about the meeting with Bastin. The clouds confirm that they discussed their plan to put an end to the imposter mage and knight who control the local thugs. He reveals Bastin has gathered enough evidence to file a petition for official support from the kingdom, and then they will have the authority to act. Klaus explains that their small organization will end as soon as the official order arrives, but first he wants to try to save his former students. He is gnawed by concern for the other, by order a skilled, yet hot-tempered man whom he left in charge. I only hope he hasn't made any mistakes. Klaus, looking at the sky, felt complete horror. At that very moment, just outside the estate, Klaus's mad deputy Garza points at the house, ready to cause chaos. In the dark energy enveloping them, Garza orders his men to attack. One of his men doubts the order and asks for clarification. Does he really want to burn down this house? The gangster reminds Garza that their mysterious leader forbade killing without permission. He firmly declares he has had enough and he is leaving. Barely had he and someone turned to move on when Garza's cold voice stopped them. Come back here, scoundrels. Garza smiles crookedly at their resistance and asks if they really refuse to obey his orders. His eyes blaze with rage. He will not allow anyone to mock him or look down on him. He lunges forward to attack them, determined to restore order for their disobedience. Laura's voice from the roof stops him. She orders the crows to take their internal quarrels far away. A cruel smile spreads across Garza's face. He is pleased because his target has finally come to him. Alexandra appears next to Laura, hands on her hips, and declares that the bandits are about to be punished. Garza Esquafs, frowning, charges the cursed staff and steps out to take down two at once in battle. Laura recognizes the dangerous weapon and warns Alexandra to be careful, but the princess rushes forward burning with the desire to prove herself. She releases a powerful burst of wind magic and shouts for him to take it. Garza effortlessly deflects the spell with a strike of his staff, and the energy twists into a wildly spinning vortex. Alexandra watches in shock as her own magic is twisted and turned against her. She is thrown backward by her own amplified spell and freezes in shock, not believing that such a powerful mage exists in this remote place. Laura immediately rushes to the defender, instantly taking the front line, ready to fight. She clashes with Garza, but he effortlessly parries her quick sword strikes. Both Alexandra and Laura are impressed by his skill. One question haunts them: why does such a powerful man work with ordinary thugs? Laura understands the truth. The magic is not his power. It flows from the cursed staff, which converts his life energy into strength. She sees the price the staff has exacted from him. His face is gaunt, thin, and aged. Laura assesses the opponent. His fencing is top level and even enhanced by the magic of the staff. He easily qualifies for S rank, or even stronger than that. Alexandra rises to her feet, determination blazing in her eyes. This is exactly the challenge she needs, so she orders Laura to stay behind. Laura refuses and says that she herself must take this on. She admits an S-rank opponent is a serious threat, even for a royal knight, but that is not the point. Alexandra insists, if these scoundrels came because of her, then she must defeat them to earn affection points from her teacher. Laura glanced down and noticed two of Garza's subordinates were already lying on the ground, completely unconscious. Garza sneers contemptuously at his fallen and declares that they are utterly worthless. In a fit of rage, he turns to destroy his failed subordinates for their weakness. Alexandra intercepts his attack and saves them just in time. "What are you doing?" she demands, asking how he could attack his own comrades. Garza appears before her instantly. "Comrades," he mocks. He strikes her with incredible speed and she flies back, knocked off her feet. "Don't make me laugh," he says coldly. "These are just tools and I don't need broken ones." Alexandra cannot believe his cruelty and asks if his boss, Klaus, would approve of this. Garza laughs, calling Klaus an old fossil, and declares that his true loyalty is to Lord Bilsmy and Lord Zedin. Laura confirms that these are the very imposters they have been hunting all along. She realizes that the cursed staff is their signature weapon. "That's right," Garza boasts. "It was my Lord Bill who gave me this power. Soon I will take Klaus's place myself." Duma, just returned, surveys the chaos on the spot and exhales a tired, "Will it ever be quiet?" Before him is a real battlefield. Filled with righteous anger, Alexandra prepares to fight for real. A two-layer composite magic circle is folded into a rounder shape. She releases powerful gravitational magic. The ground around Garza is crushed. He twitches from the enormous, mercilessly pressing pressure. Alexandra Thompson says that without his staff he is helpless, unable to wield it. But she is shocked when he begins to fight off her powerful spell. He fights gravity head-on, willing to destroy his own body to break free. Laura warns her to be careful, but Alexandra, inflamed with pride, orders her to stay away. "I will have to be the one to defeat him," she begs silently. "Otherwise, I won't be able to look my teacher in the eye." Laura watches, full of anxiety. She understands that her rival needs to prove what she is capable of. With a final, desperate roar, Garza puts all the rest of her strength into breaking the spell. Alexandra watches in horror as her gravity magic shatters completely. Freed, Garza unleashes a devastating attack. She cuts through the forest and rushes straight at her. Trapped and unable to cast another spell in time, Alexandra realizes she cannot stop the attack. She closes her eyes and apologizes to her teacher for her final defeat. But at the last second, Laura bursts into the frame. She grabs Alexandra and rushes to safety just as the attack explodes behind them. They land on the mansion's roof, and Laura asks if she is okay. Embarrassed by how clumsily she is being carried, Alexandra complains that Laura should carry her like a princess. "Why did you save me?" she asks. Laura replies, "I told you, I see a rival in you." Laura looks at her and says, "Apparently, since Sasha wanted to make peace, it means they are friends." Alexandra calls her an idiot, but her tone is soft. Laura only replies, rude. Blushing, Alexandra finally thanks her and admits that she could not come to terms with the thought. If something happened to her, her teacher would be sad. Below them, Garza's body twitches with convulsions. The magic of the staff completely consumes him, and he changes. Laura explains that he has become a mindless berserker, controlled by the dark power of the staff. Alexandra's resilience returns. She still wants to end him herself, to defeat him. This time she swallows her pride, and I can't do this alone, lend me your strength. Laura looks at her new friend and nods, decisively agreeing to help. With a new plan, Alexandra asks Laura to bind him to the spot, and the royal knight rushed into battle. Laura drags the berserker into the fight. She controls him with her incredible speed and strength. High above the ground, Alexandra concentrates, preparing a complex spell and resolutely setting herself not to fail this time. The berserker releases eruption, magic rock fragments scatter in all directions, and Alexandra orders Laura to roll back. Memory flashes in Alexandra's mind, young Duma teaching her the complex art of advanced magic. She remembers how she struggled. She couldn't even form a simple two-layer circle. She remembers Duma's encouraging words and tells herself that practice is the key to unlocking her potential. She remembered how she complained that she was not a genius like him, and how he teased her asking what happened to the confident Crimson Princess. Inspired by the memory, Alexandra hovers among the stones hurled by the berserker. Look, teacher, she thinks, and a stable three-layered complex magic circle is created, what once seemed impossible to her. The berserk sees her plan. She will use his own attack against him. I would even let you, he growls, and rushing forward, charges to stop her. And Laura is there to block his path, holding him and not letting him pass. Now Alexandra shouts, pouring her explosion magic into the gravitational one, and amplifies the flying stones to the maximum. Mad Berserker can only scream wildly in rage, while heavy, enormous boulders crash down on him with a roar, crushing him under their incredible weight. Laura says that he is as flat as a pancake, but Alexandra replies, she controlled the strike just enough so that he wasn't truly crushed. After the Battle of One, Alexandra decides that it's time to hand the criminals over to the local guild. She turns back to Laura and extends her hand again for a handshake. Embarrassed, Laura reminds her that they already shook hands, but Alexandra insists to do it again properly this time without any tricks. She wants a real handshake, a symbol of their new respect. Nice to meet you, Sasha, says Laura with a barely noticeable smile as they shake hands. Laura, Alexandra, Sasha replies. But their rivalry is not over yet, Alexandra declares. When it comes to her teacher, she definitely will not lose. Klaus appears and loudly apologizes for all the troubles his people have caused. He bows low to Duma and takes full responsibility, but Duma seems unaffected, wearily tells Klaus that he really doesn't care. Returning to the estate, Laura explains to the horrified Alexandra that her reckless actions could have disrupted the truce and ignited a war. Feeling remorseful, the guilty Duma wants to apologize to the princess for not recognizing her and asks where she is. He finds her in the room. She is eagerly taking glamorous photos of Laura while she poses in a new outfit. Alexandra is completely touched by Laura. She shows her the photos and calls her cute, while Duma and Natalia watch as the two former rivals quickly become friends. Duma still wants to apologize properly, so he asks Laura to get Alexandra for him. He tries to tell Alexandra that the fault was not entirely Klaus's, but he is interrupted by a sharp, squeaky scream from another room. Deciding to retreat for now, he opens the door to her room and goes in to check how she is. He catches Laura in a very compromising scene. She is pressing the blushing Alexandra to the bed. Not so rough, Alexandra, she protests weakly. I can't overcome you by force. Both freeze as soon as they see Duma, and Natalia staring at them, completely stunned by what they see. Embarrassed, Duma slowly retreats from the room, mumbling that love has many forms. Don't think about the bad, Alexandro, she shouts and adds, knock next time. Laura explains with a stone face, since Sasha made a toy out of her, now she is making a toy out of Sasha. From the corridor, Duma shouts at them to cover up and adds that he doesn't care because it's just them, so Alexandra remains stunned. Laura puts a finger to her lips, thoughtfully weighing his words, and asks Alexandra how far she has gone with Duma. Suddenly, Laura's older sister, Renizia, appears. Her face is a mask of rage. She demands to know what Duma did to her innocent little sister. Alexandra grabs Duma from behind, shakes him, and demands an explanation for his previous comments. She continues her tirade, mocking whether he is even a man if he feels nothing, while looking at pretty Laura in lingerie. Duma can only let out a strangled sound, completely confused by the accusations, while Laura just blinks innocently at him. Alexandra looks at them and with every second gets more and more irritated by their sudden, embarrassed closeness. Deciding that it's enough, Alexandra sharply drops her robe, revealing black lace lingerie underneath. It's unfair, she says, that it's only for Laura. Look at me too. She strikes a pose, nervously freezes and waits for his reaction, then pushes him. Say something. Duma looks at her intently with a serious, analytical gaze, and this makes her even more anxious. Sasha, he begins, then asks with genuine curiosity, have you gained weight? Horrified, Alexandra is about to explode, but Duma quickly tries to explain, saying she used to be too thin, and he was just worried, for which he receives a fierce drop dead from Renesia. Later, devastated Alexandra sits with her arms folded, grumbling that Duma has always been just as helpless, while Duma is being dragged aside in the background. She complains that she is trying to help Laura expand her wardrobe, but Duma and Laura both chime in. They have several sets of the same clothes. Alexandra ignores them and excitedly shows Duma all the photos she took for Laura, where she admits she got carried away. She claps her hands and announces that the Laura fashion show is back, much to Natalia's annoyance. Laura stands as if rooted to the spot and poses in a luxurious formal dress. She looks a bit too big for it. Alexandra Gush exhales at how cute she looks and presses the phone right into Duma's face, asking for his opinion. Duma gives an honest review. Heavy or ornate outfits do not suit Laura's practical nature. She is simply being used as a dress-up doll. The princess is displeased with his criticism and shoots him a glare. Laura is forced to try on various other dresses from Alex's wardrobe, and each looks awkward and fits poorly. After a long and exhausting session, tired Duma asks what Laura should wear to finally satisfy her. Finally, Laura appears again, and this time she is wearing her own comfortable, familiar adventure clothes. Both Duma and Alexandra look up surprised, because she chose exactly that. Laura makes a small, confident twist, and it is immediately clear. She is much more comfortable, and the clothes fit, they shine. Duma smiles in his eyes, there is genuine warmth, and tells her that her usual clothes really suit her best. Alexandra watches the delicate moment, and from behind a storm of envy approaches her. She dramatically flops onto the bed and sighs heavily. She wants to return to Empire, and this completely confuses her friend. Mood swings come again, and she decides to stay, demanding that the teacher teach her new magic. Tired Duma has no choice, he must agree. While they study the spell book together, Duma suddenly catches a strange feeling, as if he is forgetting something important. The story shifts beyond the village, to the yard of the village elder. Klaus stands guard, who nervously fidgets, begins to worry his failure has reignited the war. In Rotzen, a quiet street is shown. The calm atmosphere hides growing tension. A crowd of peasants has gathered, whispering among themselves and closely watching the strange newcomers. They watch as armed officials from Gruten, led by the majestic figure of the false royal knight Zedin, march to the village elder's manor. Inside the Adventurers Guild, Baston closes for the day and tells his employees that everyone can check out and leave. One of his coworkers asks for a drink, but Baston politely refuses, saying his wife is already waiting. His colleague teases him for being such a devoted man as Baston waves and heads home. Alone at the table, Baston is gnawing over thoughts about how the village leaders, meeting with the newly arrived delegation from the kingdom, will go. He looks out the window at the town he loves and reflects on its quiet calm. He once again revives his determination to bring back the days when the people of Rhodocina lived close to nature and supported each other. Meanwhile, the fake royal court, Mage Bill, that's him, decides to figure out for himself what's going on at the leader's residence. He senses someone's presence and suddenly turns around. Baston is standing right behind him, and this throws him off balance. Suddenly, the guild doors burst open. Duma appears, his face shadowed. He meets Baston, his voice calm but his eyes cold and threatening, as he asks if he is going home. Baston, surprised that he is here, explains. The village is on edge due to the arrival of envoys, and he decided that Duma might know something. Duma says he is already heading to the leader's estate and asks Baston to join, explaining that this envoy is a consequence of their reports about the impostor. As they trudge through the dark streets, Duma explains, if all goes well, the thugs and their leaders will be wiped out forever. Baston looks around and smiles, saying how much he likes this village. He reveals he was once a traveler of rank S, and the guildmaster decided to retire here because long ago he fell in love with the peaceful atmosphere of this town. The man whom he considers to be Duma looks at him with cold, impassive eyes and utters a terrible proverb about how even the greatest heroes weaken over time. In a flash of light, Baston is suddenly struck from behind by a magical attack. He falls. The dark silhouette of a mage stabs the swordsman from behind. Baston falls, a magical blade pierces his chest. He freezes, looks up, in shock and joy at the man he considered his friend. The figure standing over him is not Duma. It is Bilsmi, a false court mage, who used a spell to disguise himself as someone else, and he looks down arrogantly at the fallen guild leader with a cruel, triumphant smile.